Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not there is good evidence for God, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate, or in this case, discussion, as we are thrilled to welcome our guests, Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Kenny Rhodes. And before we go further, though, I do want to mention, folks, I am so appreciative you guys. That crazy intro video was made from Matterform, who is a supporter of neutral platforms for internet discourse. If you're interested in learning how he makes these graphics, such as the intro you just saw for this video, the behind the scenes is coming soon. And so I encourage you, check out his link in the description, as we're super thankful for his help. And with that, we know, folks, that you want to hear the debate, so we're going to give brief introductions and get right into it. So in particular, starting with Matt Dillahunty, we're thrilled to have you back. Matt, thanks for being with us. Matt Dillahunty is an atheist activist and speaker and juggernaut of a debater, if I may say so, who is the current president of the atheist community of Austin. Oh, that's... Well, I looked at the
I'm not, but I'm still on the board. It doesn't matter. I'm just not president now.
I'll update the Wikipedia page myself right after this. So thanks for clarifying that, Matt. And then Dr. Kenny Rhodes, thrilled to have you as well. Dr. Rhodes holds an MDiv and a PhD in theology and specializes in the doctrine and existence of God, textual criticism, and the metaphysics of Thomas Aquinas. We're thrilled to have you. Thanks so much, Dr. Rhodes, for being with us as well.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. So with that, folks, we're going to jump right into it. Dr. Rhodes is going to have his opening statement. These are going to be just 12-minute flexible openings from each side, and then we're going right into open dialogue, followed by Q&A. So with that, thank you very much, Dr. Rhodes. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, my name is Kenny Rhodes. I've been a science teacher for 15. I'm sorry, wrong script. Let me back up. It's just a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to discuss this issue with Matt. Of course, he's infamous around the YouTubes, and so it is quite an honor to engage with him on this topic. Before I begin, I simply want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Gordon Kennedy, who is actually a huge Matt Dillahunty fan. And while I do have his sympathies, he's rooting for Matt today. So, hey, Gordon. Well, I simply want to start off by saying that I know that Matt is an empiricist in a certain sense, thinks that we should have empirical evidence for all the things that we believe. I hope I'm not misrepresenting him. And I want to approach this issue in a similar fashion, in the sense that metaphysics is necessarily the first science or the first principles by which we can even understand the scientific method. And so when Aristotle had defined what metaphysics was all about, he said that it's a science which investigates being as being, or being qua being. And it is looking at the nature of reality as a whole. When we look at nature as a reality as a whole, we can deduce some things about the nature of reality, and then by way of what is called remotion, simply walk back from the effect to the cause. And so the special sciences are those things that cut off a part of being and then examine a part of being and the attributes or properties of a part of being. And we have, for example, the mathematics sciences. They will deal with quantity. The physical science, of course, will deal with motion. And the biological sciences will deal with life. And I want to quote Etne Guisson at this moment. And he says that to cut off a piece of being and to investigate the attributes of this part of being is a perfectly legitimate undertaking. But to invest any conceivable part of being with the attributes of being itself, and to investigate the attributes of the whole from the point of view of any one of its parts, is to undertake a task whose very notion involves contradiction. And he goes on to mention the fact that today, or within his own day, The error of the scientists was to simply try to answer the bigger questions by looking at the part or trying to deduce from the issues of mechanism that of agency. And in as far as I can do all the investigation I want about the Model T, it is not a question that is going to answer the issue of agency. And he goes on and speaks about the fact that skepticism is actually a metaphysical disease. I don't mean to be rude to Matt in any way by suggesting that. But again, you cannot answer the issue of God or answer the issue of the bigger picture of reality by virtue of cutting off a part of what is and then examining that and think that you can answer questions concerning the whole. When we examine reality, we see that reality is necessarily composite. We have parts. Human beings have parts. We have parts such as substance and accidents, matter, form, things of that sort. When we look at reality or being as being or the nature of what it is to be an existent being, we know that we are composite, and that necessarily, as Plato says, it takes us back to the one, or unity necessarily grounds multiplicity. And by way of deduction, by way of abduction, we can look at the nature of reality and walk that back and say it must be grounded in that which is one, that which is unity, and that which can ground all multiplicity. As a matter of fact, any existential reality necessarily must be grounded in existential absoluteness. And that is by definition what we call God. I want to answer a question that I've heard Matt ask many, many times. Which God are you debating today? And I want to help him clear up this issue, because when Muslims, Jews, Christians, and even the ancient Greeks, when we speak of monotheism, we are speaking of the God who is, and we're making a distinction ontologically speaking. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and the ancient Greek philosophers, we are all referring to the only possible monotheistic being who is really outside of the category of being itself. He necessarily is existence himself. We speak of God as simple, which simply means that his essence, what it means for him to be, is identical to existence, and existence is identical to his essence. When we define things, we define them according to essences, and so I'm going to be necessarily bringing in, and I can defend it as well, that things have essences, things have natures, and what a thing is and that a thing is are distinct. And that is the greatest composition that we find in reality. What a thing is and that a thing is. We can know what a thing is regardless of whether or not we know it exists. Kant, as a matter of fact, said that existence is not a predicate. And that's actually the problem with Anselm's ontological argument. It treats existence as if it was a predicate. But existence is actually that which causes essences to exist. We might say that, put it in Thomistic terms, it is the actus essendi composed with an essence that brings something into existence. And I can know things simply by looking at what they are or contemplating what they are. And I can define a unicorn, which there's nothing logically irrational about a unicorn existing. But what's wrong? That essence of unicorn has not been composed with an act of existence, therefore it doesn't exist. Dinosaurs, I wanted to do a poking joke at my young earth creationist friends, but I won't. Dinosaurs, they did exist, but they existed quite a long time ago, but they no longer exist. I can still define them according to the essence of what a dinosaur is. And to cite Boethius, he says, that which is and what a thing is are distinct, not separated, but distinct. He said, esse and id quod est are distinct. So that is the direction I'm going tonight. I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion. I just want to conclude my opening statement with this. Necessarily, and I'm not defining God into existence, but what I'm saying is when we look at the fact that all that is composed of what it is and that it is, we necessarily can walk backward to the one who is essence and existence, and it is identical with one another. And logically, you must have that. You have to have one that grounds all existence to give rise to all the multiplicity that we see in reality. And I'll conclude at that moment. I don't know how long I went, but
got 4 minutes left if you want them, but
that's all right. No,
you got it. No problem. Works. And want to let you know, folks, we are thrilled to let you know for the first time about this juicy upcoming debate, Islam on Trial. Apostate Prophet will be here with a surprise guest next month. You don't want to miss it, folks. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can catch up. You can catch more juicy debates coming up. And with that, thanks so much for being with us again. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. I will try to take a similar amount of time so that nobody says anything about unfair. First of all, thank everybody for having me back. And my apologies for the delay. I unfortunately got a really, like they listed it as atypical pneumonia. And I was over it inside of like 36 hours, but there's something to do with my heart that they were worried about. And then they ran a whole bunch of EKGs. And it turns out my heart's just fine. It was a bad reading or whatever. And so, yeah, I wound up recovering from the pneumonia. So thanks, everybody, for your patience. I'm always glad when we get to actually define terms a little bit. And I've hosted the Atheist Experience for 16 years, over 500 episodes, I just found out last week. And quite often you'll have someone who says that they can't present evidence for the existence of a God. That, in fact, some of them argue that God would not give evidence because if God gave evidence, that would somehow violate your free will, that's a problem. And so I'm thrilled that today we're going to at least hear what God Kenny's talking about, what the good reasons are for that, and how and why he thinks reasons are good. I don't think it's going to surprise anybody that we're probably not going to disagree on what counts as good reasons. Not the least of which is that if you begin, and I wasn't offended at all, if somebody says that skepticism is a metaphysical disease, it doesn't surprise me that someone would view skepticism as a metaphysical disease if they're advocating for positions that don't rise to the level of meeting the rigorous standards of skepticism. It's like saying, oh, well, that's scientism. You're only willing to accept whatever science is. Well, that's a fine challenge to scientism from the people who have ideas that don't rise to the level of science. All skepticism is I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, and I'd like to use the mechanisms available to do that, which includes scientific inquiry and good standards of evidence. We've solved this problem of what counts as good evidence in courtrooms and in science, and I'll touch on that just a little bit later. I had a receipt sitting here from a dry cleaner. I stopped off and dropped off 10 shirts today to be dry cleaned because evidently we're getting out from underneath the Backstreet Boys reunion tour or whatever we're supposed to call it so that nothing gets demonetized. But if I were to show you the receipt, if I were to then say, do you have a good reason to believe that I own shirts? Do you have a good reason to believe that I dropped them off at the cleaner? Do you have a good reason to believe they'll be back on Tuesday? What are the other candidate explanations for this receipt that I have? Well, the truth is, all of us, I would hope, would say, of course, I have good reason to believe that you have shirts and you dropped them off and they'll be ready on Tuesday. That's what the receipt says. And we have good reason to believe that, despite the fact that all of us know I could fake a receipt. Like you don't know. Let me put Jack Brown cleaners on the top of something, print it off on the computer. It's not like it's as difficult as trying to counterfeit money. I could make a receipt. And yet still, even knowing that it could be fake, we're still reasonably assured that I probably dropped laundry off today. If for no other reason than it would seem absurd to try to fake a receipt, but we could have done it. Maybe I did it just to make a point in the debate. How can we investigate it? Well, in fact, we can. We can investigate, and even though we know some things are fake, we can figure out whether or not this one is. We can go in and talk to the cleaners. We can check video recordings. We can check to make sure that the numbers match up and that they've got the clothing and all this other stuff. What we're trying to do is figure out, do I have a good reason to believe something? That's the whole of life. Every time somebody comes up and it says a claim to you, hey, I just got a new car yesterday. Do you sit there and go, hang on, please provide evidence that you got a new car yesterday? Well, at most, you're probably going to say, oh, show me the car. Well, it's not here right now. They're doing some detailing on it. Does that mean you stop believing them? No. So it's not just about, hey, I heard something, and no, I won't believe anything. A lot of people confuse skepticism with cynicism. Cynicism is the I won't believe anything, and skepticism is I will believe those things that are warranted. And if you look at fallacies, one of the most common ones is to say, what other explanation is there? Isn't it either just chance or God? And somebody asked prior to this, why won't atheists just admit that they believe it's all chance? Well, in some cases, I believe chance is a perfectly acceptable explanation. In other cases, I don't think that chance is in fact a reasonable explanation, because when I look at the universe, it doesn't operate by chance. It operates according to the laws and the rules of physics and chemistry. It's not chance. Is it chance that something happened? Perhaps. But the right answer when somebody says, why is there something rather than nothing, for me, is I don't know. And if you think that's a dishonest answer, if it's incredibly frustrating for you that there are people who are willing to admit that they don't know, I would just ask you, I'm far more frustrated with the people who claim that they do know when they definitely don't. And there are people running around advocating for every God under the sun and some beyond it without knowing it. Now, a lot of you probably heard this tired old claim that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in what that claim initially meant, it's true, but it's not quite true. The truth is all claims require pretty much the same evidence before it's reasonable to accept them. The difference is that some claims, from the instant they are made, already benefit from all sorts of evidence and baggage out there. If you say, hey, I just dropped my clothes off at the laundry, well, we have mountains of evidence that there are places where you can drop off the clothes, and all the little elements are already there. If you say instead, hey, last night I saw a ghost, well, all we've got so far is that we know people report seeing things that they call ghosts, but what evidence do we have that you saw a ghost? So what do we mean when we're talking about trying to collect evidence to determine whether or not something's reasonable? Because I am someone who believes that there needs to be good evidence. And I don't think that you can just start with some sort of description and work back and kind of argue that, therefore there must be some sort of necessary being. Because somewhere along the lines, somebody injected things like being and necessary and didn't always justify them. So if you have a position that's not falsifiable, as if there's no way to show it's wrong, that's a problem within testability. That is a problem within science, within courtrooms, within any number of issues where we're going to be evaluating evidence. Well, what do we mean when we say evidence? I tend to refer to it as the collection of facts associated with a situation or proposition or question, which must be evaluated and accounted for in determining whether an explanation is true. But good evidence is not merely an opinion. You can be of the opinion that flipping a coin is good evidence. You'd be wrong. It'd be a good way to make a decision. It might be better than, rolling a dice because now you're down to 2, but it doesn't mean it's a good decision. And similarly, it's not like we should all vote on whether or not the earth is flat or whether or not a God exists or whether or not dinosaurs used to exist. Some claims, by virtue of what we already know, come with a mountain of evidence right off the bat, such that while you could be wrong, because you can always be wrong, it'd be unreasonable to strongly doubt the claim at its face. And so good evidence is that which can be replicated, that is distinct, that leads to one explanation and not multiple explanations with similar support. That is the good evidence. That is better than anecdotal evidence, testimonial evidence. Here's what I think I experienced. Is it true that an alien abduction happened? After all, there's nothing necessarily supernatural there. There's nothing that is necessarily going to violate the laws of physics. We know that we've traveled to the moon, assuming you're not a conspiracy theorist who's denying that as well. It's not outside the realm of possibility that perhaps if there was life elsewhere in the galaxy, maybe it gets here. I don't think it's been here yet. I don't see enough evidence for it. But it's not like it's magic, and it's not like it's identical to a ghost story. There are tons of books, stories, and testimonies about ghosts, gods, goblins, and aliens. What has actually been confirmed? Because if we have some sort of experience and we are trying to say, here's the best explanation for why we had this experience or why I felt this. We need to make a list of candidate explanations. And you don't get to include something in a candidate explanation until there's evidence for it, until there's good reason to think that that's the case. And so if you say, hey, I saw, this dot moving in the sky last night, what are the candidate explanations? Well, we know that there are satellites and planes. Those are candidate explanations. Something else flying, we will perhaps say unidentified or an unknown object that's moving around. But do we get to say, oh, one of the candidate explanations is that there's, sorry, I was trying to stay on the 9 minutes. One of the candidate explanations doesn't instantly become, there's an alien spaceship up there. I mean, we can propose that, but until we have good reason to consider it amongst the candidate explanations, it would be a mistake to include it. You would need some extra evidence to show why this should be counted amongst the candidate explanations. Try walking into a courtroom and suggesting that God told you to break the speed limit or that he told you to bomb a clinic. The courts won't accept that, and they shouldn't, and there's good reasons why they shouldn't. Similarly, if you walk into a science test or a process and you say, oh, no, actually, that's done by angels. Well, that doesn't get to be included in science. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it doesn't get to be included because we don't yet have good reason to think that it should be included. And then we have the whole thing, I realize that Dr. Rhodes addressed this, which God, who's God, and in this context where you're talking about essence, essentially trying to describe that they're all the same. But if there is, in fact, good reason to believe there's a God, then that means think of other things that we have good reason to believe. Do you have good reason to believe that cars exist, that people buy cars, that people buy new cars, that people buy used cars? All of those things I have good reason for. Do you have reason to believe that I have family, that I have people who care about me? Maybe I have a girlfriend and you don't know her and she lives in another state and I never have to produce her. But if you suspect that there's something going on, if in fact there was good evidence for a God, that means that it's now just a matter of fact. It is a de facto reasoned position that, yeah, this is just true. Just like letting go of a pen, it falls down in this particular space. Obviously, it's not going to happen elsewhere. And so if that's the case, where's God? Because if there's good reason to believe that there's a God, then what could possibly be the good reason to prevent God from showing up right here, right now, and saying, I don't know what's wrong with Matt. I don't know what's wrong with these atheists. I don't know what's wrong with the people in the world. I have already provided good evidence, but here I am. Let's settle it so that we can get on about the business of what I would like you to do and living and enjoy your life. There's no reason for God to keep playing this game of hide and seek if in fact there's good evidence for him being around. I don't know what the answer is. I know it frustrates people every time I say I don't know. But if we're not seeing this obvious thing, this thing which I don't know if, I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't know if Dr. Rhodes thinks this is obvious or if it's just reasonable. But if in fact it's reasonable to any intelligent person and there's sufficient evidence to warrant this, why wouldn't God just show up and say, yep, you guys got the right answer. I don't know why you keep debating it. Let's get on with life.
You got it. Thank you very much, Matt, for that opening statement. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. And we hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. Thanks for being with us. And with that, thanks, Matt and Kenny, for being with us. The floor is all yours for that open dialogue.
Yeah, I'm just ready to have a good discussion at this point. Cool. So I hope Matt's also into that. Sounds like he is.
I'm all in.
All right. I just want to make a response to one of the things that you just said. Mm-hmm. When it comes to existence itself, as Shakespeare quipped, to be or not to be, that is the question. And this is an issue that some people grasp the sublimity of it, some others don't, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why. But I often ponder my existence and the miracle, quote unquote, that is. That existence itself screams for an explanation. So when I am talking about the existence of God, I am looking at it in the realm of mathematical proof, so to speak. Because when we just look at reality, we know that the one who brought it into existence is necessarily not confined by its parameters. Theology speaks of God as being transcendent and also immanent. So to look for God by the scientific method is to commit a category mistake. God is not going to be able to be put in the scientific lab or put in a beaker and then try to determine what he is and what he's like. He is the very ground of existence itself. And if I could illustrate it like this, conceptually, we can think of existence. There is no limit to what can be. And let's consider existence a vast, infinite ocean that can be participated in infinitely. If something is wet, we know that it participated in that which is wet by nature, which is water. So if I look out and I see that there are things that share the same kind of existence that I have, and when I say existence, I mean a rock to trees to myself and other people, there necessarily must be a ground for that existence, that all that I see participates, so to speak, in this wetness or in existence itself. And existence is a qualitative infinite. We don't call it a quantitative, but a qualitative infinite. It can be participated in, so to speak, infinitely. Whiteness can be participated in by any number of things. And so it's on that level that I'm arguing for the existence of God and saying that there's absolute logical necessity for one to ground all that is. That existential absoluteness must ground all becoming. Absolute being must ground any becoming, anything of that sort that we see exists. We know that existence, there's no existential law of inertia. Things come into existence, what the scholastics call generation and corruption. And so when we see things coming to be and passing away, we know that to be, nothing in this created order has existence in and of itself. And so we look to one who has those attributes. And the Greeks, the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, they all came to the same conclusion concerning classical theism, that there must be this one who grounds all reality. And I am going to, probably not tonight, but I do believe that I can take the ontological God that Muslims, Jews, and Christians and the Greeks believed in, come into the world of theology, but on the basis of the one must ground all multiplicity, or unity necessarily is first and grounds multiplicity. That gives me some natural evidence for the Trinitarian God, that God, the nature of God himself, he must be this perfect unity, but also diversity within his nature. And that gives reason for what we see in reality, answering that ancient problem of the one and the many. And so that's how I would argue for the Christian God and say that there's a distinction between ontology and theology. We're all talking about the same monotheistic God, but when we switch to the world of theology, that's when these distinctions necessarily take place. Okay. I know I didn't anticipate saying so much there, so I apologize.
No, I got pretty good notes. And I think, so, I mean, you and I already know we have some basic differences about our epistemology, as do the other people that are out there. But also there's differences in language. And
I'm sorry, you roboted there. I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry. There's also differences in language in how we not only phrase things, but in what questions we're talking about. And I took pretty decent notes right here, because I'll begin with where you started. Existence screams for an explanation. And to me, and I want to make sure I'm understanding you, I would agree with that, provided we're speaking metaphorically, that when we look out at all that is, it would be very nice, and we would be very comforted if we had an explanation for how and why all that is all that is. But it's not. When we look at that, you use the word miracle, and I'm fine with miracle in a colloquial sense along that lines. Oh, this is incredibly extraordinary. We don't know. But then you followed it up by saying, we know the one who brought it into existence. Well, and you followed that up by saying, to begin looking for God. The difference here is that I'm not looking for God, and I think that's a mistake. I'm looking for whatever the explanation for existence is. And if the explanation for existence turns out to be a God, I'm fine with that. The problem is that if you set your sights to, hey, we're going to find this God. Oh, this is what the ancient Greeks thought. This is what these people thought. This is what these people thought. Then you talked about, for, if something is wet, we know it's come into the vicinity or interaction with a wet property, water. And you tried to start an analogy to extend that to be something about existence, to say it requires a grounding. I don't see the evidence that any sort of thing that would qualify as a grounding for existence is necessarily an agent. I don't understand why the physical and chemical laws, the physical facts about the universe, that the only things that we can actually investigate, we can't go back beyond the Planck time, we can't go outside of this. It seems to me that this field of classical theism, which you're going to encompass with all the various gods, and then you get to the Trinity. But how do you know that you're not just seeing what you want to see? Because I don't see the evidence either for a Trinity, for a God, for a being, for a required grounding in the sense of any sort of agent. All that we have and all that we see is the world. And it seems that when you say there must be an absolute being, where's the evidence of that?
Are you asking for empirical evidence for that?
I would go with anything. I would love for there to be empirical evidence to show for any of this. But if you're just looking at it saying, oh, we're inferring this from the fact that there's something, there must have been something that started it, I find that to not be a reasonable course of action. Because while we would have to say there needs to be some explanation, like if there's a bunch of burnt wood out in the backyard, you and I would agree there is some explanation. There is something, some series of events that led to what we found. And if someone were to say, oh, this occurred because of something extra dimensional, something that we can't interact with, something that we can't get physical evidence from, I would think we would probably both reject that. Why is it that we don't both reject it when we get to the big question, something that we cannot actually investigate beyond living in our heads?
Well, let's push your analogy to the issue of God. If I see that things exist and they don't have existence in and of themselves, let's call that burnt wood. In the same way that you and I can look at that burnt wood and say, it must have been heat. There's no other rational explanation for it. In the same way, we can look and see existence being shared by the multiplicity of beings and say, there must be existence itself that has, burnt itself into these existent beings, to kind of push your analogy. So
except that's not how it works.
Necessarily implies, oh yes, we're basing on the laws of logic.
No, that's not how it works. The reason we know that burnt wood is because we have evidence of wood burning. We've seen it before, during, and after. We have mountains of actual empirical evidence. And that's what makes our conclusion that the best explanation is that this wood burnt through some natural means. The thing that makes that the best explanation, the reason we have good reason to believe that, is because we have actual evidence for it. You can't argue by analogy that there is something that is existence or something that is essence and therefore requires a grounding. Where's the evidence for essence? Because if essence, as you said in your opening, if there's an essence of a unicorn and a unicorn doesn't exist, and an essence of a dinosaur and a dinosaur doesn't exist now, and an essence of me and I still exist, then you're basically saying essence is not in any way tied to facts about reality, because a unicorn isn't a fact of reality.
Okay, let me try to explain myself better, because I may not have explained this the best way. When we look at reality, we see that what a thing is and that it is are distinct.
I got that.
Okay. So when I see that an essence has been co-joined with the act of existing and now is, I know that there must be someone who put that together, or something. I'll just say that for the sake of what we're talking about, must have put that together. For there to be composed things in the world, there must be one that composed it. So when to use that analogy, if I see burnt wood, you're saying that wood is the evidence. Well, I'm looking at you and I'm saying you are the evidence, because you don't have existence in and of yourself, that you are the evidence that your existence is participated in the same way that that wood, when it was hot, participated in the heat of the fire. That's my argument.
Well, so on the one hand, you've constructed a circular argument, because when you say there must have been someone who...
Yeah, that's why I said something, in order to clarify that, or to get it out of the realm of...
Sure, but if we just go back... Rather than digging in on the circular, if we just go back to the difference between what is and that is, let's see if we can sort that out. What is me? I am a collection of chemicals in a particular pattern, in a particular location, at a particular time. If we got really reductivist about it, we could go down to atoms and stuff like that. But that is it's still a function of that, because let's say the difference between me and a unicorn is that I am here in some place in time and a unicorn is not here at this place in time, as far as we know. And so now then the only difference between an extant thing and a non-extant thing is whether or not it occupies a space and time. As long as we're talking about, things that exist in a material realm, we set aside abstracts like, does two exist? If we're going to talk about two, let's at least, hold up a door number for whatever, because we're talking about this thing. And so it seems that that when we push back on this, the response from those people who are advocating for God is that, well, God doesn't exist in the material realm, so it's a mistake for you to try to put him in a box like that. And the question then is, I don't know what it means to say doesn't exist in the material world, because that's true for a unicorn as well.
Right. So if you were to, let's look at the example of a human being. Would you say that human beings are just their parts, chemistry? Are you a reductionist?
Are they just their parts? Well, when we're talking about the physical thing, yeah. I don't see anything that's more than the physical things. And all we're seeing is physical things in action and patterns in action.
Do you believe that there is such a thing as a human nature? The essence of being a human, which would be what we call a secondary substance, and then the primary substance is the individual substance.
No, what I think we're talking about with human nature, which I have no problem with these things, as colloquialism. So even the human spirit, the human spirit of adventure. Well, there's not a spirit. There's not a spirit of adventure, and there's no human nature. All we're doing is taking and packaging and describing, here's what human beings do. But
then what makes you you? What makes you you?
But what they do doesn't exist. They exist. Their actions exist. But this is an abstraction. This is us describing it like we would describe two. Like, how many fingers am I holding up? Two. Well, that's not two. This is a representation in the physical world. So if we're going to describe this accurately, we would describe Matt as, extended digits on a finger in order to convey a concept of a quantity. And so we can look at that and say, what's Matt doing? Well, he's describing two. But that is the abstraction. That doesn't exist as a thing.
Okay, we know scientifically that humans, I think, go through an entire change-up of matter every 7 years or something like that. So what makes you when all your parts have been changed out?
Yeah, this is the ship of Theseus.
I don't want to get bogged down too much in this, but is there a form there? No, I'm saying I don't want to, because I find it very interesting, and I
love it, but we would bore the heck out of a number of people here if we started in on it. And so for me, the solution to the problem of Theseus is that the definition of what the ship is changes as each thing changes, in much the same way that it is an ephemeral. At this instant, this is the definition of me. If I lop off a finger, the instant that finger is lopped off, the definition of Matt becomes Matt minus this particular finger. And if the finger comes back on, if I get a tattoo, then the definition of me changed when that tattoo to include that. And so that's the thing. I don't want to get into the transporter problem, but quite possibly the solution to ship of Theseus, the transporter problem, all of this is to address continuity, because time is just change. And you're trying to look back at this point in time and say, why isn't it still this? And the answer is because it's not. Now it's this. It's moving. The definition of me is moving with me in time.
So you would define a human being as being different at every moment of their existence? Much like Heraclitus would say, everything is flux, everything is becoming. You never step in the same river twice. Therefore, everything's being or everything's becoming, and nothing is actual being. Is there something that unifies a human being, that makes a human a human? I think what you pointed out to me is just that which is an accidental aspect of what a human being is. We might say that matter, wood, or bones, meat, those are, in a general sense, what a human being is. When we define a human being, a rational animal that is composed of matter. But when we describe, say, a finger or something, that's an accidental aspect of what a human being is. Your particular signet matter that's been instantiated. So when we look at what a human is, see, if what you're saying is true, then that means somebody who goes to prison for committing a crime, because they're changing moment by moment. You've got somebody who's paying the price for a crime that this person now, 10 minutes later even, is a different person. So there has to be some continuity to what a human is.
So just because...
Are you suggesting that kind of a radical change, or are you
well, kind of. I mean, because you can define things at whatever scope you want. We can define it it's a standpoint of humans. We can narrow it down based on subqualities down to this. But the thing you're talking about, for example, with somebody who's in prison who's now a different person, the question is the person 10 minutes later substantively different with respect to the thing that they're incarcerated for? If in fact,
and I would say no. Would you agree?
Well, it depends. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. For example, let's say that someone went out and it shot a whole bunch of people, and it turns out that the reason they did it was because they had a brain tumor that was pressing on their amygdala, and we arrest them, we try them, we put them in prison, and then we do the study, we find the brain tumor, and then we go in, we have surgery, we completely remove the brain tumor, and now, while that is the same agent, because that's the level of discretion that we apply here, is that person still likely to cause or enact or take that action ever again? And I would say that if the evidence shows no, why are you keeping them in jail? And how long should you keep them in jail? And shouldn't keeping someone in jail be something about protecting other members of society, protecting them from themselves, trying to discourage recidivism? And so here's somebody who slaughtered 4 or 5 people, and it wasn't because of anything about their specific character that remains, but was absolutely the process of a chemical process in their brain that is now gone. Why should we keep them in jail?
Right. And I don't mean to get bogged down in this at all, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about what makes Matt Matt. What makes a human human? There necessarily must be an essence that gives continuity as the change is going on. This is the one and the many.
I'd love a definition of the essence. I'd love a definition of the essence. That's like the first thing I wrote down when you were talking is what exactly do you mean by essence? Because you, and I'm not meaning this insulting in any way. This is what I meant when I said we're going to use language in a different way, because you're talking about, oh, there's an essence of existence. I have no idea what that is, and I haven't yet got a description of it now, other than it seems to be some ineffable, it's the thing that makes humans human. It's the thing that makes existent things exist. Well, those are both tautologies that don't add anything edifying at all.
Okay, I might not be communicating this because I'm not saying there's an essence of existence. I'm saying that what makes a dodo bird, we define things by their essences. That is what we do. A definition is a description of what a thing is. That a thing is also distinct.
Like if you ask three people to define a dodo bird, what would they say that you think is essence? You want to look at the definition, how we define a particular thing. We define them according to their essence or their nature. That is distinct. I know you just said that, but I'm asking for some kind of example, because you've said that twice now, and I still don't know what it means.
Well, just because people will ignorantly give different definitions of a thing doesn't make the fact that we have defined something like this and we define it, I don't mean to repeat myself, by what it is. Like the dictionary definition of what a human being is.
Okay, so first of all, dictionaries aren't prescriptive. Dictionaries aren't prescriptive; they're descriptive. Language we use, and dictionaries just describe how we use language. But if you, like, for example, I can pull up on Wikipedia. The dodo is an extinct flightless bird that was endemic to the island of Mauritius, east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. The dodo's closest genetic relative was also extinct, Rodriguez solitaire. What they're doing here when they're defining dodo is describing things about it. It's not a complete definition, but what about that is essence? And how would we know the essence of a dodo versus the essence of something else?
It's what a thing is.
I
guess what's a human being?
Well, there's a number of different
usages. A rational animal. Let's just say that rational animal.
Why would I define human being as a rational animal? Do you not think there are other potentially rational animals that aren't human?
Well, that is the standard definition of a human being, is a rational animal. That's all.
That's one description of a human being, but I would argue that there are other primates and dolphins and others that would count as rational animals that are. Well,
that's kind of irrelevant to what I'm trying to say. I mean, when we define it, we're defining it from what it is. We may not have a complete definition of something, but that doesn't negate the fact that there is there's a nature of something.
No, that you're saying the description is the description. The fact that you're describing something doesn't mean that what it is some sort of essence that needs an explanation. Please. So, like, for example, when we define dodo, it's an extinct flightless bird. Let's ignore the extinct thing and pretend like it was still here because we were describing it. Okay, what does it mean to say flightless bird? Well, those are words that we use that have particular usages about the type of animal we're talking about and what its capabilities are. But that doesn't mean that that's the essence of a dodo.
I really think you're not getting what I'm saying.
I know I'm not.
This is standard philosophical truth. This is not something I'm making up whatsoever. We define things by what they are, their essence. We don't have a complete explanation. The scientific method, we go out and we examine things and we look at their characteristics and their properties and we put a definition to it. I mean, that's the way reality is all about. We define things. Things what makes me different from you and what makes a human being different from, a rock is what it is. Its nature, its essence, what it is.
I agree that what makes me different from you and both of us different from a rock gets down to what we are. But I don't see anything that you can point to that qualifies as essence. These are all physical aspects of each of us. The things that are different between me and you and between the rock are all physical things that we can describe and identify and detect. Where in that is essence? It's not a thing. It's not
what
a thing
it is.
It's an explanation.
It's essence what it is.
Essence is our packaged description of those qualities, not the qualities.
A nature is what we look at, and then we define what that thing is, put down the definition. I think we're going down a rabbit hole here. What I am saying is that because that is distinct, because what a thing is and that a thing is distinct. I know essentialism is something that most atheists, a lot of thinkers today think is not a part of reality, very reductionistic these days. We even with evolutionary theory, they define things, in a way I think is cladistics. I think is fallacious from the beginning because it defines something by what it's made of, eukaryotic, for example, and say that we all share in that. But the principle is the same. The unity and the diversity, and the fact that when we are looking for, we're looking for the explanation of ourselves. We know that we are composed of parts. There must be one who has put those parts together. That is the core of my argument.
Okay.
Which is based on the laws of logic.
So first of all, you just seem to suggest, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this right, that you're opposed to scientific classification of creatures by their biological facts.
I think that cladistics is not the full answer. That I just by way of
well, I mean, at least with cladistics, we are pointing, at least to science, they're pointing to specific detectable, identifiable properties, and yet you're willing to point to other properties and call them essence.
What I'm saying is that
how is eukaryoticness? How is whether or not something is eukaryotic not a part of its nature?
Because it's what it's made of. It's its matter, not its form.
So whether or not something is eukaryotic is not its nature, but
there's
the thing that you can't describe that makes me is my nature. But eukaryotic is definitely not it.
That's what we're made of, right? That's matter. That's like trying to define a house by saying it's wood and then saying it shares a common ancestor with the bench. I don't want to get into evolution at all, but I was just trying to point out by way of illustration that the loss of the concept of essences has put a lot of what passes today committing some logical fallacies by not understanding that there is a true essence and form behind what is. In order to have any kind of continuity through time, there must be that which is existing and identifying what a thing is through time. Now, time happens to be part of our nature as we are temporal beings. But I'm trying to simply illustrate by way of other information that essences are real. That's how we define things. We don't define things by what they're made of.
Sure, we do.
We
do it all the time. We do it all the time. And a eukaryote is just an organism whose cells have a nucleus. So why is it a problem to say that the nature of eukaryotic cells is that they have a nucleus?
That might be part of what they are, as in part of what a human being is that we are made of bone and skin and blood. It's part of it. But there's also that immaterial aspect, that form. For example, if I'm going to make a statue, whether I do it by the negation of the material there, or if I put it in some sort of form and pour metal in there, I am necessarily putting a form to that matter. I'm making a matter form composition. That requires a composer, one who is putting that matter form together. If we chisel out a statue, necessarily I am bringing form to that statue. What I'm saying is that looking at what something is made of is not the full picture. It's just the matter. Where's the essence, the form? Now,
there is no essence or form. That's my point. There is no essence or form. You have utterly failed to point to anything that counts as essence or form. And the thing is, if we were to describe cells, if we're going to describe cells as eukaryotic, that is not about what they're made of. It is an abstract description of how they are put together. These are the types of cells that have a nucleus. It doesn't tell you how wide they are, how big they are. It doesn't tell you what's in the nucleus. It doesn't tell you what it's made of. It doesn't tell you what genetics are in there. It is a description, an abstract description of the structure, just as saying, I am a reasoning being is an abstract description of what this meat sack does.
But to say that me and a plant, we are in the same clade because we're made of eukaryotic cells is a fallacy.
No, it's not.
That's the matter.
It's called set theory. It's called set theory. At this level, you are in the same bucket as a plant. At this level, plants are now outside and you're in with other animals. At this level, you're in with only primates. At this level, you're in with only humans. At this level, you're in with only people from, descent of in Eurasia or Europe or wherever else. It all depends on what resolution you're looking at it. I
understand the rest of it. I'm not. Okay. My only point is that pointing out that because I'm made of eukaryotic cells and something else is made, that there's some sort of cladistic family there, is to negate the existence of an essence or a form. No, what makes a thing a thing?
No, it doesn't.
What makes
If there is an essence or a form, you should be able to demonstrate that no matter how people have labeled cells.
Well, I can demonstrate it very easily. I can take a form and I can take that form.
What form? What's a form?
Wood and build a house.
What's a form?
Is the essence of a thing. It's what makes a thing.
You keep defining the exact same word. You keep saying the same words over again. Oh, the form is the essence.
Because you're not quite getting it.
That is a tautology.
Getting it. That's why.
Well, you're not quite getting what I'm trying to say. How can I get it when I ask you what a form is and you say it's the essence of a thing? If you just keep saying the same words over and over again, how can anybody get it?
A form or an essence or a nature is the definition of what a thing is.
Okay. It's a definition then, which means...
And it's distinct from existence itself.
It is a definition that doesn't exist, which means it's not a function of the person or the entity or the thing that you're describing at all. It is something that you're putting onto it. That's what definitions are. Definitions are abstract descriptions in language.
They're not real.
They're not real. If every mind, it's words. We made words up.
You're a nominalist then. The only thing that actually exists are the words that we put to them?
No, I didn't. The words don't exist. The words are the abstract concepts.
No.
They are the abstractions.
When you say they're just words, you're suggesting that you're a nominalist, that there is no real thing behind those words. Is there a real human being behind the definition of Matt, a human being? Also, he's an individual who has these particular characteristics.
Yes.
If I was to describe or define you.
Yes, there is a place.
That's what I would say, right?
There is a place and a label. The label is just something we make up. If we call this the United States, of America, we have made up a place. It is a word. It is a concept. It does not exist. It does not need to exist. But the thing that it's pointing to, this particular block of land established with the government, et cetera, that thing exists and can be demonstrated. But it can be called anything.
Wait 1 second. Just hear the rest from Matt. Just hear the rest from Matt. Just to be sure, was that the end of your sentence, Matt? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't quite understand what you're saying, because there is a a reality behind the words that I'm using. If you say the United States, there is a place called the United States.
Correct. But the word United States is something we made up. It has no meaning and it has no existence. The word, the concept lives in a brain. And we could have called it the blah 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 blah. We could be living in the blah blah. Yes, that is the thing.
Yeah.
So the thing exists, not the word.
I'm not saying the word exists.
But you did, because you literally said form, essence, and nature are the definition. But definitions are descriptions that we place onto things. They are not essences of the things.
That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying. We are describing the essence by giving it a nature. Or we're describing the nature by giving it a definition.
I have no problem at all.
There's a reality there that we are looking at and examining and writing down a definition. I'm not saying the definition in and of itself, the word, we can call it whatever you want. You could call it what you're goobly gobbly, whatever. I'm talking about what's behind, what that language signifies. Me too.
And when we begin to describe, for example, let's define this pen. All of the things that we can say about this pen, what writing's on it, what color it is, what size it is, what kind of ink it is, how full it is, where it is, at what angle it is, what temperature it is, all of those things are physical properties of this. What is it that is not physical that you say is the essence of this pen?
Penness. We describe it as a writing utensil.
No. Writing utensil is a description we put onto what this is used for. That is not an essence of the thing. And when I ask you, what is it about this pen? If you say penness, that is not even remotely a response that adds anything of substance. What is God like? God-like. What is life? Life. What is existence? Existence. What is the essence? It's the essence. I'm asking for something that teaches us what you mean.
I get what you're saying, but without that pen in front of us, if I said pen, you would know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Do you know why?
Right. Yes, because there is a real reality behind what a pen is.
No, because you and I speak the same language, and we each have a concept in our head that is similar but not identical concepts. When you say pen in English and I hear it, we are communicating information. We are not presenting the essence of a pen. We are using language to trigger something in my head, the same as what's been triggered, or as close as we can get to the thing that's been triggered in your head. There's not an essence that we're identifying. We're using a description.
This is the way I would submit the answer to that. Somebody came up with the concept of a pen, a writing utensil, or whatever. Same way, let's put it back onto human beings. Conceptually, there was an essence of what a human being is. Now, I'm saying that essence exists apart from a human being. I'm not a realist in the sense of there are Platonic forms out there, but there is really a human nature that resides in you and me that we mutually share. That is distinct from us, not separated from us, but distinct from us. All that we see, the multiplicity of what is, because there is no existing principle or property within human beings, we have it contingently, we have it accidentally. Again, we must look to something that has existence in and of itself, and that has been popularly defined as God. I'm not saying that penness exists outside of an individual pen, but I'm saying that is a real reality that conceptually we identify, and human beings created a pen. If we push that back to human beings, there is a nature that you have and I have that we share in common. We are both human beings, and we share in that. That is the unifying aspect of what we are. Now, as individuals, there is still a substance there by which we make predications. I'm saying that because there are essences in this world, it's the same composition, matter and form, essence, existence. These things are synonymous. A form, an essence, or a nature, those words are all synonymous. What a thing is, and that it exists, are distinct. There must be one that has given an act of existence to what we see in reality in order to ground that reality. That's my argument. I think we got bogged down on some of this particular stuff that probably boring other people real bad. But
well, the problem is that the question was, is there good reason to believe in a God? And as far as I can tell, you think the good reason to believe in a God is that there must be something that serves as the essence grounder. But throughout
I don't think you're quite getting my argument here.
I don't know,
to be honest, I might not be communicating it as well as I can. But.
You've literally said several times tonight that there must be the thing there's a difference between what is and that is, and that there must be a thing that brings into being that is, that serves as the grounding for that is.
Not well.
I don't know. In any case, here.
Yeah,
this was supposed to be a debate about whether or not there's good evidence for the existence of God. And whatever it is that Kenny's saying is good evidence for the existence of God.
I'm submitting logical...
Am I going to get to finish?
Hold on.
Go ahead, Matt. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Somehow gets to essence. And for the last 45 minutes or more, I've been trying to get to any sort of definition or understanding of what essence is that isn't a bald assertion or a tautology. And I defy anyone to show anything here that isn't either a bald assertion that there's something, that there's some nature distinct from us, there's some essence distinct from us that is humanness, that is penness, that isn't merely a description of what we are and what we do.
There's a multiplicity of books out there that you can grab.
Yeah, but I came to debate you, Kenny, and if you can't answer the question, what am I supposed to do? Go read a book?
I think you're understanding my answers. What the problem is.
Okay, then it's my fault, not yours.
No,
I'm just not able to comprehend this.
I can bear the blame of not communicating it accurately, but that's why I've been repeating myself. This is not
repeating is not educating. Repeating is not edifying.
I didn't say it was. I said because my perception is you're not getting the argument is why I've been repeating myself. I'm not
okay,
with what I'm saying.
Like to get back
you knew
to
I wasn't getting it, and you know repeating doesn't help. Why the hell would you repeat if you know somebody's not getting it?
Because that helps with people when you repeat something.
You literally just said repeating doesn't help, and you knew it didn't help. All right, whatever. What's next?
There may be a way in which maybe using a different analogy, Kenny, might move it in a direction that kind of brings about new ideas or perspectives on this particular argument. Otherwise, maybe even moving to a different argument is okay too. We do have a bit before the Q&A yet.
Yeah, I don't know that there's really anything to move on. I mean,
do you have any evidence for God?
I'm trying to give you logical proofs for God, and I think it's quite logically necessary that if we look at reality and it's composed, there must be one who composed it.
What do you mean one? What do you mean one who composed it? First of all, how do you know the reality is composed, and how do you know that there's a composer? And what is it? What do you? What do you know about that composer? No, you didn't. Asserting that something is so is not answering the question of how. Why is it every time that you say something and I ask you for clarification, you claim you just told me?
Because I did. I did.
Okay. I defy. So literally, there was nothing out of your mouth other than an assertion that if something is that reality is composed and there must have been one who composed it. I asked, how do you know it is composed? Because that's a very particular
And I told you, because we looked at ourselves. We have parts. what's hard to understand about
that's
that?
Not how you tell. That's not how you tell if something is composed, because composed. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can say no, it's not.
Individual parts put together necessarily means.
Hold on one second.
How
about we do this? 1 second. I just want to jump in, just because, in terms of explaining how it, namely, because they're in parts together, how that leads to it being composed. We'll give you a chance to do that, Kenny, and then we'll give Matt a chance to respond, because I think there's Matt's wanting more detail on why that follows.
You don't get to call something a composition.
A car is made of parts. Somebody must have put those parts together, i.e., a composer. I don't know why this is
Can I?
Understood.
Can I?
Yeah.
I agree with you that cars are put together. Now, how do you know that a cell was put together by someone?
I don't know that we're even talking about that. I'm talking about human beings. I mean, if you want to, because cells are parts, even the scientists will tell you that there was something that preceded the cell. Reason tells us, even in the Big Bang, that we must go back to a singularity.
See, you're now confusing whether or not there was a first cause, or whether or not there was a first state, or whether or not there was a change, with whether or not something is composed. Composition. Yes, you are. Let me finish. Composition. If you don't want to hear it, Kenny, I guess we can just go on to questions, because
let's go on to questions.
Okay, then Kenny doesn't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyway because I came here to do work.
Go ahead.
In order to say that something is composed, that implies that there is an intentional action, a goal in bringing this out. That is true, I would say, for a car. And we know that that's true because we know about how cars are designed, built, manufactured, et cetera. So when you see a car, you know it's put together of a bunch of different things. A human being, on the other hand, does not have the same evidence or track record or surrounding understanding that we have for a car. So it's very weird to say that human beings were composed in the way that cars were composed. And when you say that a car is composed, we can find mountains of evidence for that. But when you say that a human being is composed, you are just inferring and not actually providing evidence. How do you tell the difference between something that is composed and something that is not composed if you believe that there's a God who composed everything? Because now you are walking around in a universe of composed things, on a beach of composed things, scattered with composed things, and you're picking up this composed thing and claiming it's different, and that this is evidence of God, whereas a car is not evidence of God.
Car is evidence of agency.
I agree, but a human isn't.
The entire reality itself, creation itself, has parts. Even the universe, unity and diversity, unified in the fact we call it a universe, but time, space, matter, energy, a composition. There must be a ground, something, someone that has put the universe together because it's composed of parts. This is almost a self-evident principle.
Okay, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Is there anything composed of parts that wasn't put together by an agent?
No, because it's irrational.
So,
which atheism is irrational because it necessarily requires such absurdities.
That makes your entire argument circular, because you're basically saying there is no possibility that anything ever occurred other than being composed by a God. So you're assuming the very thing that you're trying to demonstrate and not actually demonstrating.
No, I'm looking at composition and saying there must be one who composed it, or something that composed it, who is one. This is
no. I'm fine with the notion that there is an explanation for how something comprised of different parts came together. Right. I'm not fine with you assuming that it is an agent necessarily. You have to demonstrate that.
Well, if we had time, I would. But we're trying to get past the principle.
I thought that's why we were here.
Well, we're getting past the.
I don't know how much time you need.
We're having a hard time getting past the principle.
We're having a hard time getting to a definition. I don't know how much time you need to demonstrate that it's like you and I look at two different things, and you say they're both designed, and I say, well, this one's clearly designed by human beings. We don't know what the explanation for this one is.
That's not really my argument either. It's just the fact that reality is composed. Plato spoke of the fact that
don't care.
Unity grounds multiplicity.
You can quote as many people as you want and make as many assertions as you want. I came here for evidence for God.
I was giving you an argument for God. I'm not going to be able to give you empirical evidence because it's a category mistake. You cannot describe the whole by the part. We can go to questions and answer there, James. I think we've come to pass in that sense.
We will jump into the Q&A. Want to let you know, folks, our guests are linked in the description. Highly encourage you. You can hear plenty more where that came from. And thank you very much for your first question. This one coming in from Dustin Ellerby says, where did God get his data to create or even exist? And what mechanism does God use to create complex life when God has no parts? Dr. Rhodes.
Again, I'm arguing for the logical necessity that one is first and it grounds all multiplicity. This is classic theism. When you begin to look into what properties or what this one must be, it takes us back to the Christian God, who is the ground of all things, perfect unity and diversity within his very nature.
You got it. Thank you very much. And this one coming in from Ozian, thank you very much, says, why must there be an ultimate reason for human existence, Dr. Rhodes? The answer should be self-evident if there is a God who wants us to know the meaning.
Read that one more time.
You bet. They said, why must there be an ultimate reason for human existence? The answer should be self-evident if there is a God who wants us to know that meaning.
It's logically necessary that the universe has an explanation.
This one, coming in from Amy Newman, thanks so much, says, after show at my channel, and question for Dr. Kenny, said, is this God conscious? If so, why?
It's called the principle of proportionate causality. You can't give what you don't have.
Gotcha. And this one from Don Folman, appreciate it, says, for both of you, if, quote, I think, therefore I am, is logical, is, quote, I was nothing before I could think, and I'll be nothing after I die, just as logical?
I guess I'll go first. As a Thomist, the statement is backwards. I think, therefore I am. It's actually I am, therefore I think. My existence is self-evident. It's a self-evident, undeniable truth that I exist. And based on that, I am myself, the law of identity, law of non-contradiction. You can trace that all the way back through law of causality, principle, just for clarity, all the way back to analogy, principle of analogy, that all reality is grounded in a necessary being.
Yeah, and I would say, and I don't mean this to be insulting, but I could back this up if we were able to dig in on it, that it's clear Dr. Rhodes does not understand the cogito, because you can't just reverse it and say, I am, therefore I think is how it should be. Because what Descartes was trying to do was demonstrate how, at a minimum, one can be assured of one's own existence. And I think it was Thomas Hobbes that pointed out that that's still predicated on the primacy of reason. But now we're 4 questions in, and all we hear is that it's logically necessary for every single question, except for the consciousness one, which is you can't bring something into that you don't have. It's literally the only answer he's given, logically necessary.
I wasn't negating that statement there. I was just simply putting it in Thomistic terms.
This one coming in from Daniel Baker. Appreciate it. Said, for both Matt and Kenny, if you discovered your position was wrong, how would that affect your daily life? Matt, could you handle living with God? And Kenny, could you handle living without God?
So if it turns out there was a God, I'd be interested to know. That doesn't mean I would worship that God or revere that God, but I would certainly believe that that God exists. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't understand why God seems to just be playing hide and seek, because he could clearly reveal himself or herself or themselves or whatever to all of us without question, to the point where we don't need to have these discussion debates, and could also provide some information so that maybe we know what essence is or what is or isn't logically necessary. But would I live with God? It depends on who that God is as to whether or not I'd want to spend any time with him. Just like I could believe there was a king or a president and not necessarily like that one or want to, stay around them. I can't do anything to stop a God from doing whatever it wants with me. And so I just have to rest assured that I am at least morally superior to anybody who would punish me for being sincere and honest.
You got it. And Kenny, how about you?
I would probably seek, just like every person who doesn't believe in God, to live the best life that I can if there was no God.
You got it. And made by Jim.
I wouldn't live any different than Matt or anybody else. I try to do good to my neighbor and everything else, because those things are, good.
And I like that. I wonder, and maybe we can talk about this another time, I wonder which things you and I actually do or don't agree are good. But I would agree with you that we're all trying to, I just don't understand why it's not enough for people to consistently try to do good in the way that you and I both would. I like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I am very sympathetic to atheism. I've gone through periods of my life, 3 major periods where I almost lost faith. So I do understand atheists. I don't think they're wicked people or depraved or degenerates like a lot of my rabid fundamentalist Christian brothers and sisters do. I have a great relationship with my friend who's a huge Matt fan. So we try to do good to our fellow neighbor, and I'm not opposed. Yeah, I mean, I'm not at odds with Matt or any other atheists. I have good friends that are.
Gotcha. And this one coming in from, do appreciate your question, from Mark Reed, says, Dr. Kenny, it seems you speak like the essence, quote unquote, of something is separate than the thing itself. How would you demonstrate that an essence exists independently?
That is simply the fact that we can do this by analogy. Human beings, when we draw architectural plans, we have the form of something, the essence of what that thing is, and it takes an agent to bring that thing into existence. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're separated. I'm saying that essence is seen in the instantiation of what that thing is. It's distinct. It's not separate, but it's still a part of what something is. To be and not to be are distinct, and what a thing is and that a thing is are just distinct as well.
You got it. And this one coming in from Brandy Beckett, thanks so much, said, Dr. Rhodes, is my invisible floating dragon part of this ocean of existence? And if not, then why?
Right there is an essence that doesn't have an existence in the world. It has a virtual existence. And it can't be living because God has not given it an active existence, but it still has existence because he can point it out. And I assume that the words that he's saying are actually corresponding to a concept.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for this question. Coming in from Made by Jim Bob, says, Matt, any argument against God can be invalidated when used against truth. I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Any argument against God can be invalidated when used against truth.
That's what they say.
I don't get it either.
I don't know what they mean, but I would argue that I tend to go with a correspondence view of truth. The truth is that which comports to reality. And so if somebody can demonstrate the truth of a proposition, then I think they're right. I just think what happens quite often, and here I would say, is that one person is convinced that something is true and is not capable of demonstrating that it is true or that it's reasonable to believe that it's true. And so, yeah.
Gotcha. And then this one coming in from Jonathan Lane says, Dr. Rhodes, if God is what defines something's essence apart from human definitions, then how is God distinguishable from the universe as we experience it? If God isn't distinguishable, what's the point?
I'm not understanding the question. Could you maybe read that again?
You bet. They say, if God is what defines something's essence apart from human definitions, then how is God distinguishable from the universe as we experience it?
Gosh, I don't even know how to answer that one. I would have to have more information to get at what they're trying to ask. Yeah, I don't think I can give that a good answer.
I know how to answer it from Dr. Rhodes' perspective, but I don't think I should do that. God is the thing that gives essence to the universe as well. He's drawn a category line where it doesn't match with what you've said.
Well, he gives existence to the world.
Right, but the questioner was asking how God is distinct from the universe. And the thing that you should have answered to be consistent is that God is distinct from the universe because God gives existence to the universe and does not give existence to himself.
Good answer.
Yeah.
My brain's a little fried.
But what do I know? I don't understand this stuff.
This one coming in from Nick says, 2 for Matt. Would you be up for an exhibition boxing match for any atheist charity versus cosmic skeptic? That's the first question. And then
I have no interest in boxing matches. If we wanted to do something else to raise money for something, I would. I don't feel the need to beat other people, even mildly for fun. I'd rather do something better.
This one from Nick as well says, are you related to Robert Anton Wilson? Your thoughts on him, Matt?
I have no idea.
Gotcha. And
no thoughts.
You got it. And thanks, conservative non-believer. Appreciate your super chat. Says, fun times. I couldn't agree more. And Tracy Evans says, Kenny used wiggly words such as essence and form. And then he said, don't bring it up if you can't define and defend it. Kenny will give you a chance to defend yourself against that. What are your thoughts?
I'll pass.
Gotcha. And Marcos Laurenti says, as a fellow atheist, I'm glad to see Matt at least humble himself and not call the other person names and at least listen to them out. I was there. I was where Matt was 30 years ago. Don't let anger be you.
What was the first sentence of that?
He said, as a fellow atheist, I'm glad to see Matt at least humble himself and not call the other person names. I don't think they're referring to Kenny. I think that, I don't know what they're referring, though.
So okay, let me hit this super quick. Don't do the I was where you were, I'm better than you. Don't do that as an atheist. Don't do that as a Christian. It would be absolutely vile for me to show up and say, Kenny, I used to be where you were and I found my way out. And it would be absolutely vile for Dr. Rhodes to look at me and go, I used to share your concerns, but I found my way out. To put yourself as the bigger person. Yes, I didn't call anybody names, and I didn't get particularly upset today. But there's also nothing wrong with having an impassioned plea for something. So rather than worrying about, oh, I'm so glad somebody acted so much better, let's focus on, can we argue better? Can we present evidence for things? I don't want the theists name calling and smacking people around in chat. I don't want the atheists doing it. I'd like to be able to have a discussion. If we get somewhere, cool. If we don't, at least we tried, and maybe we'll know how to do it better next time.
You got it.
I wholeheartedly agree with Matt there. Being passionate, nothing wrong with that at all.
no matter how much Kenny and I argue tonight, I'm sure that we could go hang out sometime. If people seem to think that, like, ooh, it came to verbal blows. All of a sudden, now we're at war. No, we're not at war. Heck, we probably would have played for the same softball team at one point until I tore my arm.
We might be able to play music together too.
I
could show you a few things.
Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
You got it. Jake 4D, thanks, sir. Your question says, this essence is Deepak Chopra. And they said, Dr. Smith, Dr. Rhodes, you are adding words, let's see, behind it. And I don't understand this. They say, please stop using necessary without justification. So I'll give you a chance to respond to that. As I guessing you have a thought on that, Dr. Rhodes.
Nah, it seemed like more of a comment, so I'll just let it pass as that.
Gotcha. Daniel Rathburn says, let's see. We'll entertain it because it is interesting. I think as long as we don't go too far down the rabbit hole, they asked, when does the ship of Theseus lose its essence and become a new ship? Or no longer?
Never.
And I would agree, because the ship of Theseus doesn't have any essence. Nothing does.
Juicy. And
can't lose something.
At least we agree on the conclusion.
Can't lose something you never had.
You got it. And then Flamio says, there is good evidence for deities like there is good evidence for round earth. And I think they mean they told me they meant a globe earth. It is all deniable. A description for who we are and what we do is your answer for the deity question.
I got nothing.
Sounds like a comment.
I'm confused by that as well. Sigifredo Sarabia, thank you for your question. Says, Dr. Rhodes, if using the quote to or the essences to describe a thing, does God rely on these essences for us to describe God as all good, omniscient, powerful, etc.?
I'm not
sure. It kind of sounds like they're trying to figure out how, from logical necessity, you got to the God of classical theism, and that you can look up.
I think that's what the question was asking too.
Okay. I don't want to get bogged down in it, but same thing as what I said. What we see is composed of parts, and there is a logical implication. For example, here's another principle that's self-evident and undeniable. The per accidens necessarily implies the per se, meaning that if there is the accident of tallness, it must necessarily be in a per se, a substance. So if I see existence as an accidental feature of reality, that nothing within reality has existence in and of itself, that means that existence is accidental. It implies necessarily, logically, that there is a per se existence there. Something, someone.
Gotcha. And this one coming in, appreciate your question. Nasacius, appreciate it, says this Thomistic stuff is presuppositional apologetics. And they say abstractions are not a third state of reality and that there is no penness. We'll give you a chance to respond to that, Dr. Rhodes.
The reason why I said what I said right at the beginning is I said I'm starting with the nature of reality and created being, and then deducing and by abduction, by way of remotion, going back to what is necessary to account for what we see in existence.
And I'll jump in with two things. First of all, please stop calling everybody a presuppositionalist just because you don't understand it. Please, atheists, please stop doing that. Not everybody who says something that is philosophical and it is analytic as opposed to synthetic is necessarily a presuppositionalist.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that because I repudiate presuppositional apologetics.
Now, that doesn't mean that they have good reasons, and you can go after that. But I would point
I
out
wouldn't
that one of
expect
the
you
things
to agree with that.
one of the things that Kenny just said is that he started with a created being. And I do the same thing, except I just start with a being and try to figure out whether or not it's created. Because if you start by believing that the being is created, you're going to find a creator.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I should have said existent being. Yeah, Matt's right with that one.
You got it. And Dustin Ellerby, thanks for your question, said, describing something that doesn't exist in reality doesn't make it exist. Has anyone ever seen a god create anything? No. So why think that's the case, Dr. Rhodes?
I don't know, like the illustration Matt and I used earlier, I don't need to see the one who started the fire in the wood to know that there is a reason why that wood caught on fire. Something started it.
Yeah, the difference is...
Doesn't have to be a person, but yeah.
The difference is you're reaching a conclusion that it's a person, not necessarily the fire, but with everything else. And that's the point, is that maybe that fire was started by a person, maybe it was started by a bolt of lightning, and maybe it's started by something else that we don't know or understand. And so when I look at the universe and say, what is the explanation for everything? My beginning point is, I don't know. And when we look around, we gradually learn more and more, and we build up good explanations for the things we know. It's not like, you may have objections to whether or not we categorize things by clades, but it's not like we're wrong about whether or not there's a cell with a nucleus. And it's not like we're wrong about whether or not, this is the way biology by and large works. Whereas once upon a time, we didn't have a germ theory of disease. We had spirits, and, this was people's explanation for things. What happens is, as we find good reasons for believing stuff, the gods vanish. The gods' ability to interact with us and the evidence for the gods is directly, is inversely proportional with our ability to investigate and discover the truth about reality. Miracles decline just as videotape starts climbing up, above and beyond. It's just, but that's me preaching, not just answering the question.
We'll jump
what I would just simply add is that I can know, though, rationally and necessarily, that whatever started that fire had heat, either virtually, imminently, or formally. I can know that for certain.
One more time.
I can know that whatever started that fire, that agency had the ability to start that fire either virtually, imminently, or formally. That just simply means I don't have to.
My only problem was that you put the word agency in there, which.
Well, I didn't use agency as capital A, so to speak, but I would consider natural law some sort of, unintelligible agency, something that is causing something else in a certain sense.
We'll jump into the next one. Thank you very much for your question. Coming in from Distrophysicist, says, there's a rock and a tree stump in my garden. I thought about using them as furniture for tomorrow's lunch. Do they already have an essence of furniture? If yes, who and at what point connected that essence and being for Dr. Rhodes?
Well, once he would put it in the form of some sort of furniture, then he would be creating the essence of a chair or whatever it is. He's bringing form to the matter.
You got it. And this one coming in from EndoXD says, Kenny, the designed car consisting of parts is a false analogy fallacy. The car has parts. It's designed. The universe has parts. Thus, it's designed. I think they're attempting to paraphrase you. They say, what about a particle with no parts? Is it designed?
A particle with no parts, we see a lot of particles coming together to produce what we see in reality. That would be a simple thing, but it still exists within space and time, and that would be the composition at that point, not necessarily a simple essence in that sense. Technically speaking,
now you're saying the composition isn't just a thing with a bunch of parts, but a part put into space and time is a composition?
No, I'm saying the composition is time and space. You can't have a particle without space and time. So
I swear
a particle,
that's literally what I just asked.
Yeah. Well, maybe I didn't hear exactly what you said there. Yeah, let's go on unless Matt wants to say something else.
I'm good.
You got it. This one coming in from Caleb Alamond. Thank you. Said, if, quote, you can't give what you don't have, unquote, does this mean God has black wholeness, or the essence of it, black holes, and law of gravity-ness?
You can't give what you don't have. You must have it either formally, imminently, or virtually. It would take too much time to explain exactly what all of that is. For example, if I punch somebody, I don't have to have a black eye myself to give them a black eye. So that means that I have that, in a sense, imminently or formally, or I forgot the other one I said, but it's just the ability to bring about a certain effect in that sense.
You got it. And thank you very much.
If you can't give what you don't have, does that include hope and inspiration?
I'm talking about causality at that point.
Just food for thought.
Gotcha. And this one coming in from Anubis. Let me know if I'm pronouncing this right. They say, Anubis patron says, Kenny, it was unclear to me why the Hebrew God is the true God. Why are you so certain when there are plenty of monotheistic religions and even some that predate Judaism, such as Zoroastrians?
That would take a long time, but it's just based on monotheism. Then we get into the realm of theology. We would need to ask the question, did this God reveal himself? There a lot would go into it, but I have tried the best that I can to be rational in the steps that I've made so that I have good reasons. Just like Matt, I totally agree with him. I want to believe as many true things as I can, and I want to have good reasons for believing that. So there is a reason why I would start where I do. I'd actually start with the self-evident nature of my own existence, trace that back to God, and then ask questions and see if God has revealed himself.
Gotcha. And thank you very much for this.
How do you tell, by the way? Like if you ask questions to see if God revealed himself, I swear, I promise you, Kenny, I swear, this isn't some trick or anything else. I've been asking the same question for ages, even back when I was a believer. People say, oh, I asked God to reveal himself. How do you know when that's happened?
I think for just looking at outside evidence, I would just see where there would be evidence for this God to break into space and time. I do believe that miracles or the historical report of those miracles, I hold that the biblical documents are good historical biblical documents before I attribute to them inspiration or the fact that they've come from God. But I look at them as historic documents and then simply go from there, see if there's good evidence for the fact that predictive prophecy came true. I would ask questions of origin, meaning, morality, destiny, seeing if this revelation had explanatory scope and power. There would be those types of questions.
We'll jump to the next one. Susie, did you have something you wanted to add, Matt? I didn't want to.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
You got it. Susie says, this is for Matt. Not a question, but please take a bow. Thought you had a really logical presentation. Got a fan out there, Matt?
Well, thanks. But so one more quick thing I can do. Thank you. I'll take a bow just for the person who enjoyed it. But I don't look at debates as win-lose things. I don't look at them as WWE events. Granted, they are theater, so maybe taking a bow isn't outlandish in theater. I appreciate the support, but really, all I want is I want to learn something. I want all of us to learn something. And so if anybody learned anything cool, I did my job. And if you didn't, well, all right, that's your fault, because Kenny and I tried.
Yeah. I just add to that I don't even really like the notion of a debate, because it seems like there's an opponent, somebody you're trying to crush. I like discussion, and I came into this just wanting to have a good chat.
You got it, and appreciate that about both of you guys. It's been a pleasant, you could say, opportunity to listen for all of us, including myself. And Gio, thank you very much for your question. Says from Matt, if reality is reductively one single thing, what attributes do you think would best describe the ontological primitive of reality?
What attributes would describe the best ontological primitive? Is that what it said?
They said the ontological primitive of reality.
Yeah, I think that, well, since the question began with if it's reductive, and if we're reductivist, then it is only, you never can get to the full understanding. Maybe when you got to the smallest particles available. But if you had, for example, the position and spin and everything, all the facts known about every particle, then that would be as descriptive as you could possibly get of the ontology of the universe. I don't think we have anywhere near that, but that is, I don't know what else there would be, because that would describe their motion, their interaction, all of it.
You got it. And this one from Toby says, Dear Dr. Rhodes, when God gave meaning to the essence of life, was the Almighty, let's see, I don't understand the rest of it, so that one I might have to come back to. Sorry about that, Toby, but we might be able to get that later. Daniel Baker says, Matt, can skepticism hold us back? If we dismiss something, if there is no proof, won't that stop us seeking new ways and technologies to find proof?
Oh, gosh, no. So, first of all, skepticism doesn't say anything about anything negative about exploration. It's absolutely encouraging of all that. All it says is that the time to be convinced of something is after there's sufficient evidence for it. It is setting up methods so that you don't get conned by a Nigerian scam artist, or you don't get, conned into this, or you don't waste your time on this. But scientific exploration is absolutely part and parcel of what skeptics do and love and care about. And exploring, what it does is it says, hey, here's 3 people who are putting forward potential cures for cancer, and one of them involves rubbing a rabbit foot on your knee, and the other one involves some chemicals that have shown some likelihood in other studies, and the other one is prayer. Which study are we going to spend the most money on? Doesn't mean we shouldn't investigate others, but if there's been a demonstration of efficacy towards one particular channel, we move that direction. The question, I guess, becomes, how many times does something have to fail before we stop putting money at it and stop it? And skeptics aren't cynics. It's not saying, oh, no, that failed. If you look at the James Randi Educational Foundation and what they've done over and over, although they're not currently doing it now, is testing people to see if they can do paranormal things. Anybody who says they can do something paranormal, we will establish a test protocol that everyone will agree to, and they will be able to demonstrate that they can do what they can do. So you get a dowser out there and you put them to a test, and then they fail. They've failed every single time. Nobody's ever passed a preliminary test. Does that mean dowsing is BS? No, it just means no one has yet demonstrated that they can do what they claim to do. It may be the case that you can never show that something is bunk or false, especially if it's not falsifiable. But you get to a point where you say, we need something new before we're going to expend resources on that. We have a pandemic, we have climate crisis, we have all sorts of things, and we have to decide how best to use our limited resources. And if somebody comes up and says, hey, I want $1 million to study prayer, well, they need to go to the Templeton Foundation, who's already done that study and showed that prayer works at best at the rate of chance, and worse if people know they're being prayed for.
You got it, and thank you very much for your question. This one coming in from Ference Alice says, believers love using words like essence, soul, spirit, aura in their mind, and they say that it's to bridge the natural with something otherly. Concepts, that's it, nothing more. We'll give you a chance to respond to that if you'd like, Dr. Rhodes.
Just out of habit, sometimes it's very natural for me to use the language that I'm used to. I try to accommodate the best I can. And when I find myself slipping in an assumption without any evidence, I'll try to back it up, just like I did with, calling it someone or something. So sometimes it's just hard not to use terms you're so used to using once you feel like you have sufficient evidence for the use of those terms.
You got it. And thank you very much for this question from Seth Nesmith. Says, Kenny, can you show the empirical evidence associated with the steps taken from A, namely a creator is necessary, to B, the Christian God exists? How have you excluded all other illogical possibilities?
I couldn't give any empirical evidence because that's only looking at the nature of reality and taking apart and trying to explain everything by examining that part. To be honest, my brain is kind of shut down. I suffered a slight either heat stroke or severe heat exhaustion yesterday. So my energy levels are kind of low. So
no worries at all. This one coming in from Roger Bernacki. Thank you so much. Says, Dr. Rhodes, what would make you stop believing in God? Is there anything that could occur in your life that would change your mind? Please use a specific example.
I was pretty close to that, probably about 8, 9, maybe 10 years ago.
7 o'clock.
I thought I turned that off. Sorry. Evil and suffering is particularly vexing to me. And I went through a time that was really, really horrible. A lot of things happened personally. A lot of things happened in my family. It was kind of like the book, The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis, where he said that he thought that God wasn't who he thought he was, and it troubled him. And that's kind of the experience that I went through when I was very, very young. I went through a similar experience when I heard some of the arguments for evolution and, trying to suggest that, looking at how things work somehow does away with agency. So typically, I think just the normal things that most people struggle with, I have struggled with too. Philosophically, I believe that's what has saved, apart from the individual experience of God, and with no explanation whatsoever. I really felt his presence. I can't give any empirical evidence for that, and the healing of my heart, and a better understanding that just because I projected a certain understanding on who he was doesn't mean that that's who he was. So without getting too transparent, that's been my experience of coming close to losing my faith, evil and suffering, which is probably fairly common.
You got it. Thank you very much for your question coming in from Chloe McLean. Thanks for your super sticker. And then this one from EndoISD says, thanks, James, and both debaters. Really enjoyed this. Question for both. Matt, what rank are you on chess.com Blitz?
Yeah, that question, it's hard to answer because it depends. In Bullet, I'm right around 1,000. In Blitz, I'm probably closer to 1,100, and in Classical, I might be closer to 1,100, but it doesn't matter because I pretty much only play Bullet. And so, yeah, we'll just say right around 1,000.
You got it. This one.
I came in right at the time in the pre-show where Matt was talking about doing logical puzzles and stuff like that. My wife can do those things. She's really, really good. So I really have a lot of respect for people who can, do the chess, play chess, and do those kinds of things. Because I'm a musician, so I'm in this, not only am I a musician, but I'm a jazz fusion drummer. So my mind goes off into the abstract and the polyrhythmic kinds of things. So when you give me some things like that, like chess, it's like just not for me. But I have a lot of respect. You're one of those guys
who smells notes.
I have a weird relationship with time. It really is strange.
You got it. They have a question for you as well, Dr. Rhodes. They say, I want to know why you think the essence of human beings must come from a God. You got the easy one.
Again, there must be an actus essendi. There must be an act of being or an act of existence that is composed with what a thing is, its form, its essence, its nature, in order to bring it into existence. Same thing happens with human beings. George Lucas came up with that concept, and we can speak of essence and form as a concept before any kind of an instantiation. So that's the necessity of bringing that together is where I put the evidence, the logical evidence for God.
You got it. And thank you very much for this question. It's coming in from James Belluart. Says to Matt, who or what created the laws of nature?
Well, I don't see any reason to think it's a who, but I also don't necessarily know that these are things that are created. They are, as far as I can tell, descriptive, and that they are, for identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, as far as we can tell, they are true even if nothing exists. They are true in the absence of anything. And so all they are descriptions of truths. And it seems to me to be a mistake to say, why is something true, as if somebody had to make it true, rather than, it'd be the same as saying kind of like what created God. If God is viewed as this thing that did not have a creator, that always existed, and in fact, as Dr. Rhodes would point out, is a necessary being, then I don't see why there's any problem at all thinking that these laws are necessary. The problem is we have to assume they're true to try to prove them false. And so you can never get out of that loop. So we have to presuppose the foundations of logic. And that's a problem. But as far as I can tell, there's no solution to it. And this is the problem that the presuppositionalists go with, because they want to assert that they have found a solution to it. So asking who or what created the laws of logic is like saying, why is Bachelor?
You got it. And this one, thank you very much for your question. Coming in from Distrophysicist again, says the rock and the stump that they were referring to wanting to use as a kind of table for lunch tomorrow, said the rock and the stump already have the shape I could use as a chair and a table. Is a further action needed to turn them into furniture, Dr. Rhodes?
Great.
Oh, I think they were asking, is a further action needed to turn them into furniture in addition to...
Does their essence already include a piece of furniture, a rock and a tree?
Well, you can certainly use it as that if you want. I'm not saying that if you sit on something, it becomes a chair. That's not the argument there.
Oh, but if I say take a seat and motion over to a rock, evidently the rock does it have the essence of a seat, or are you inferring that the rock can be a seat because you've seen other rocks used in that way, and that it's not a function of the rock so much as it's a function of us saying, hey, we're going to sit down?
I would say that there's a certain aspect that it could accidentally be used as a seat, but that's not going to change what it is. But again, we have to distinguish matter and form. When I put matter together, or I use a rock, a piece of wood, or whatever, and I put it together to form a chair, that is what that form now, that is what it becomes, because I have formed that matter as a chair.
You got it.
Just because you intend it to be a chair, what if I use it for firewood? Have I changed its essence?
No, but you have misused it. You have misdirected what its intended purpose is.
Because you're the one that determines what its intended purpose is.
I think it's common sense. If you take a chair from your kitchen.
What is a chair? What does a chair even look like? I mean, you can make a chair look like anything. You're assuming that there's a chair. I've seen hundreds and thousands of chairs. They all look different. You can make an abstract art thing and have somebody go, what is that? And they say, oh, that's a chair. Oh, well, now it makes sense it's a chair, but it wasn't intuitively obvious a chair. It didn't have anything about it that was chair essence.
Again, that's not my argument.
Okay.
This one coming in from Hank says, Dr. Rhodes, how do we get from God's goodness to him feigning death for 36 hours to forgive us for sins that he made us inherit?
You roboted on me there, but from what I heard, that is a involved theological question that, like I said, I don't want to go off into too much minutia, and
that's all right. We don't have too many more questions, so feel free to kind of go deep on it, because like I said, in the Q&A list that I have here.
I don't know that I could. Like I said, my brain is kind of because I've exhausted today.
Let's see. This one coming in from James Labrato says, hey guys, just throwing out a reading suggestion for really strong logical argumentation for a creator. Andrew Locke's God and the Ultimate, Andrew Locke's God and Ultimate Origins, a novel cosmological argument. Matt in particular, they said they recommend it to. What do you think, Matt? Are you plan on reading it?
I'll be honest, probably not, but not because I'm not interested, but because there's 10 books sitting down there waiting for me to get to that I don't know if I'm going to get to this year. I'd rather sit down and have somebody explain to me why it's a particular book that I should spend time on, because 5 minutes spent digging in on why this book as opposed to some other book. Plus, evidently, I have to read the Bible again, despite having read it countless times.
You got it. I have the same issue, namely just too many books to read before I can get to any recommendations. But with that, folks, we are going to come back with a post-credit scene in just a moment. As folks, we are absolutely thrilled. We are beyond thrilled. If you have not seen already, at the bottom right of your screen, folks, we are super excited. Apostate Prophet will be joining us for a debate. Islam on Trial next month. You don't want to miss it, folks. It's going to be a blast. And so do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, as it's going to be a great one and you don't want to miss it. With that, Matt and Dr. Kenny, it's been a true pleasure to host you guys. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
it's been a pleasure.
100%. And I will be back in just a moment, folks, with upcoming debates, just like the one I had just mentioned. So stick around for that. And thanks, everybody. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here. Want to say I do appreciate you so much for all of your support. Oh, you know what? Normally I would have read this during the stream, so I hope you can forgive me, folks. I am going to read out now everybody who we want to say thank you to, and I'm so sorry I forgot. I was supposed to read this before. Normally I do it while the debaters are still here, and so I'm so sorry if you did sign up for your name being read out loud during the debate. It's not technically going to be during the debate, but I'm going to do it right now, and I hope you can forgive me. I want to say thank you very much, Ozian, for your support. Folks, if you didn't know, this was a crowdfunded event, so namely the honorariums that we had raised for the speakers. We are 100% thankful for all of your support of this project as well as Modern Day Debate, folks. Want to say thank you so much for your support as we are striving to fulfill the vision of providing a neutral platform for everybody to make their case on a level playing field. And we hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from, folks. And so I want to read those names out, though, and say thank you very much. Ozian, as well as Brian Carnes, as well as Chris Gammon and Brian Stevens, Michael E. Cruz, Paul Robinson, Brooke Chavis, Rado, let me know how I pronounce it, Joshua Ellick, thanks very much, as well as Dale Pastel and Sideshow Nav, Josh Wayner, Andrew Kroll, Eric Tweet, Farron Salas, saw you in the chat as well, and then Sunday Warship, Bob Sadler, Invisible Ninja, Pete Baroob, Barry Berry, Byron Hager, Chris Gammon, as well as Nikolai Bibick, and Timothy Foster. Thanks so much for your support as well. And don't worry, there are more, folks. I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who had contributed to this crowdfund, including Michael Bertau, Timo, Michael E. Cruz, Jack Hunziker, Bert Mays. Oh, gosh, have I not put this in the right order? Bear with me, folks. Let's see. That's right. We've got that. And then 2 seconds. It's my first day. You'd think that. Second page is loading, and other people that I want to say thank you to. Javin E. Mitchell, thank you very much, as well as Diane Smith and Bubblegum Gun and Amanda Foster. Those Annoying Vegans, Brian and Anna, thank you so much, as well as Hollis Frazier, Paul, Stephen C. Hosfield, Androcophobie, as well as Paul Robinson, Alex Dubois, and Nate Jones. Thank you so much for all of your support. Oh, and John Ferrandino, thanks so much. And Yves Simard, thank you as well. And Wilmar Castro, Andrew G. Steffen, Michael R. Berto, and Kazam, Kedgeworth, Converse Contender, John Maddox, Invisible Ninja, Mark Reed, Timo. Thank you so much, all of you, for your huge support as we are thrilled about the future, folks. And so thank you for that last minute super chat that just came in from William Kurt. Thank you so much. Oh, and that's right. We do have more super chats to read. And so I do want to mention that. So namely, William Kurt, let's see, said Christian can bring up all the historical evidence he wants and it will just be denied because it's not scientific evidence. This is foremost a philosophical debate about science, not history. Well, I'm so sorry that the speakers are gone to basically they didn't get to maybe hear that because it came in kind of late, but do appreciate your support of the channel. And so, but thanks so much, everybody, for being with us, as well as I see you there in the old chat, Hannah Anderson, Riley S. Good to see you. Moderators, great job. We do appreciate all of your hard work. And then General Balzac, thanks for letting me know that it's okay to read the names after. I appreciate it because I was like, oh gosh, I forgot. It's been a long day since like 6:30. I've been just trying to get a ton of stuff done today, including prepping for this event, but also stuff around the house that I had been behind on and stuff. I'm supposed to study for comprehensive exams right now, and I have to hammer it out tomorrow. I really do, because I can't get behind on it, and I can still make up for it tomorrow, but I've got to hammer at it. And so, but anyway, thank you very much. EndoXD said this was exciting. Thanks, James. Thank you, Endo. Appreciate that. And Haxed, you're right. I'm so sorry because I remember you did give. Oh, gosh. let me see why I didn't see you. Hold on, because you're right. And I'm wondering, I'm like, how did it not show up? And Haxed. That's weird. So you're not on the second page, but the second page, I think, let me check on this. Well, maybe, in Hacks, did you sign up for the, I thought you signed up for the coffee mug, right? Then why would it not show? Because it shows, yeah, if I word search this name, but let me find if you're on the first page. Because I know I've sorted this, like, and I'm wondering, I'm like, that is weird. Well, are you not under the name Haxed? Let me know. But yeah, it's weird that it's not showing for me. But I do remember you made a contribution, and it was a sizable one. And so I do want to say in Haxed, thank you, seriously, for your support, along with Anthony, and I think I had missed. So want to say thank you so much. Seriously, we appreciate it. Whew. Thanks for your patience, folks. William Kurt, thanks very much for your second super chat. Said we have to have the philosophy debate first before we get to historical reasoning. If the atheist is a materialist, then all evidence will be ignored. Well, that's juicy. Like I said, I don't know. You might be earlier in the debate. Maybe you hadn't realized that you're behind, as the speakers are not here. But Matterform said, I still think you stream your dissertation when you get to there. Thank you for that, Matterform. That's a funny idea. And it is actually kind of a juicy idea. Oh, you're right. And Haxed, gosh, we did it via PayPal, which means there's probably somebody. Oh my gosh. There might be somebody else. I'm so sorry, in Haxed. But in Hacks, I'm adding you to the list right now, Sheets, because I know that I told you that I'd add you to the list, but I am going to add you to the list right now to be sure that I send you that mug, as I totally appreciate your support, seriously. And so that's embarrassing on my part for not being more organized. So let me just add right now, because I'm not risking forgetting. And via PayPal. Okay, so I will look you up via PayPal. And so, do appreciate all of your support, though, folks. You guys, not this Saturday, it's like a habit now. This debate, Islam on Trial, is going to be a juicy one. We were really excited about it. And so, want to say hi. Matterform, thank you so much for making the intro video. Matterform is linked in the description. Want to encourage you folks, if you haven't checked out Matterform's channel, what are you waiting for? You'd be crazy not to. And then, Pete Baroob, my pleasure. Thank you, and thank you for your kind words, Riley S. Love you as well. And Fox Populi says, great job tonight, James. Thanks for the awesome debate. I appreciate that so much. Seriously, you have no idea. It means more than you know. And so, I just unplugged. The computer. So if all of a sudden the stream kills, it means I said goodbye, because I only have one right now. I only have one power cord here because I forgot one at the house. That's embarrassing. But yeah, I can tell it's lagging. It'll speed up. Bear with me. I can tell the Twitch chat is slow though. But I want to say in the old Twitch chat, good to see you, Brooke Sparrow, as well as Endenlip. Thanks for dropping by, as well as Ozian. Good to see you, Mana Mystery 33, and Sienna 2002. Alley Cat, glad to have you here. Alley Cat 1969, as well as Kane Malice. Thanks for dropping in. Pumped you were with us and catching up on the Twitch chat. Many people in the Twitch chat, which is exciting. Folks, if you didn't know, we do have a Twitch channel at Modern Day Debate. So if you did not know that, I will throw that. In case you prefer, maybe you like watching on Twitch instead of on YouTube, want to let you know about that. And so I am pinning that to the top of the chat in case you have a preference for Twitch. Be my guest. Also, though, if you didn't know, Modern Day Debate has a podcast. Well, folks, oh my gosh, you're missing out. What do you do? What are you waiting for, folks? You can find Modern Day Debate on every podcast. Test me, because you might be like, really? Because I use a really obscure one that nobody knows about or uses. You can still find us. All you have to do is pull up your favorite podcast app, search for us, and you will find Modern Day Debate. And we are now working on getting our all debates up onto the podcast within a day of the debates happening. So, for example, this debate, we plan on it being up on the podcast by tomorrow at noon. So really cool stuff. And we're excited about that. So we do appreciate it, folks. I'm so encouraged that, man, Modern Day Debate, the podcast, people have really been using, which I'm encouraged by. Is I'm like, I was like, are people really using this? It's like, it's worth uploading. So I still upload them. And so I hope that that's useful for you as you can listen to Modern Day Debate on the go. And we're at 449 likes. Folks, we have to get to 500. Believe me, we can get there. We really can. We've got 669 people watching right now. You might be like, well, then isn't it easy to just get 669 likes? Well, no, a lot of them are using the bathroom, other miscellaneous things. So we're just shooting for 500 baby steps, just like in What About Bob, one of my favorite movies. But thanks so much for your support. Dan R., appreciate that like. And yeah, you guys, I am thrilled. Want to read through some of these super chats. As I know you guys might have been like, James, you didn't read my super chat, bro. As we tonight, sometimes just to kind of keep super chats lower, or I should say questions lower during the Q&A, we don't want to have too many to where the debaters are here answering for questions for like 3 hours or something. So we have asked, in certain debates, we'll ask like, hey, throw in a 10 and we'll read it on air. Otherwise, we'll read it in the post-credit scene. Bronze Eagle Productions, I'm going to start doing that right now. Thanks for your thumbs up. Appreciate your support via super chat. And Richard Jacobs, thank you. Even though Matt's not here, I will say once in a while, Matt actually pops in the chat, no joke. And so he may actually hear this, but Richard Jacobs says, love you, Matt. Good job. And Chloe McLean says, keep up the skepticism and your advocacy. Matt, thank you for helping me through my own journey. And then Charles in solo, thanks for your question, said, please say, quote, essence of effervescence 5 times fast. Thanks. And this one, thank you very much. Jamie Russell says, God did it, quote unquote. Can Matt please steelman Dr. Rhodes? Please and thank you. And then Marcus Agrippa says, who composed the composer of Cells? Humans? And then Brocanus says, Kenny, how do you know a cell was put together by a person or creator? Then, some of these I actually did read on here already. I didn't realize. But John McBride says, for Matt, is Ashley Perian from Atheist Experience single and open to dating a handsome 30-year-old guy? You mean Brian Stevens? No, I'm kidding. But thanks for that super chat, friend. And then this one coming in from Daniel Baker. Let's see. Okay, I definitely asked that one. Toby, I was confused by. Let's see. Matt Powell's pterodactyl. Message deleted. Hey, I don't know. And then Marcus Agrippa, thanks for your super chat. I don't know if it's meant to be a super sticker or what, but thank you very much as well. This one coming in from Bubblegum Gun says, Matt Dillahunty versus Nephilim Free. Please, Matt. I've already asked Matt. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe he'll change his mind. Who knows? But I doubt it. The Batman. Let's see. Thanks for your super chat. And then thanks for your super chat. Banned for life. Appreciate your super sticker. And thanks very much from Daniel Baker. I think I read it. Let's see. Yep. Amy Newman, thanks for your... And Amy Newman, if you have the link of the after show, I can put it in the old description. And then Jonathan Lane, thanks for your super chat, as well as Ozian said, why must there be an ultimate reason for human existence? The answer should be, oh, we read that one for sure. And then Flea Flicker 34, thanks for your super chat, as well as Dustin. Let's see. And then NoXD says, thanks for hosting these fun debates, James. I always have a good time. See you tomorrow. Oh, that's right. That was from last night. And then we had 2 from today's stream from Nathan Thompson, which Nathan Thompson, it wasn't live. I restreamed, or I premiered the debate with Tom Jump and Nathan Thompson this morning. And I think some people didn't realize I put in the title, not live, but sometimes people they don't see it. So let me know if you were one of those people, if you didn't get a super chat read, and we can pay it forward, so to speak. So I'll read your question. You can just put it in as a normal chat in a future debate, and I can then read it as a super chat, as we really do appreciate you guys supporting the channel that way. And then Floyd Visser, good to see you. And then KK and JJ Evans, parentheses KK, thanks for coming by. We're glad you're here. As well as Human Girl, glad you came by. And Christopher, thanks for dropping in. As well as Samuel Littleholm. And I love seeing all the regulars, all the usual suspects in here. Do appreciate it. Ozian, thanks for your super chat, says, I proved Kal-El is God using the Kalam on YouTube. LOL. I have not seen that yet. That sounds juicy, but let's see. My dear friends, upcoming debates. This is actually going to be a really busy week of debates. I want to let you know that. You maybe don't know that. You're like, is it really? What? It is. And I'm working on, there's one of them where we've got a European guest, Perspective Philosophy is hoping to come on. And I was like, oh, bro, I got to like find a way that I can host it because it's hard for me to host during the day. But it might be, Converse Contender might do it. It's going to be, what's better to leave behind? An idea, namely like, what's your legacy while you're on Earth? And when you die, is it better to have left a child behind, namely like offspring, or an idea that influences the world? So interesting. Ozian, thank you very much. Says Matt D versus Flatter Day Earth. That's funny. Yeah, Flatter Day Saint. That would be a juicy one, no doubt about it. That'd be interesting. And then Samuel Lilham says Herman Hayes versus Nathaniel Jensen Part 2. The first was hosted on Non Sequitur Show. Hey, I'd love to do it. I don't know if it's gonna like work. I think I reached out to Herman Mays like a year ago. I don't think he was up to it, but maybe. I mean, I will give it a shot. And then Ryan Secord says, modern day debate. How does one go about getting a live debate on this channel? So basically, if you email me at moderndaydebate@gmail.com, it sends an auto response. It should, where it gives you like the things that we require, and that doesn't guarantee it, to be honest. It just gives you the necessary conditions. It's not sufficient. One would be, for example, like you have to use your camera. We're getting more strict about that. We prefer that for sure that they have debate experience. We don't want it to be a person's first time. That we want to be able to see a debate they've done on another channel, so that they can send a link. Even then, still no guarantee. It depends on their topic. Sometimes I'm not trying to be mean, but there are just some topics where I'm like, man, I love your enthusiasm and I appreciate you sharing the idea. I just don't know if our audience is going to go for it. And a lot of people don't know, like, if we put out some topics, people will actually unsubscribe. So we have, so it's like, I've got to be picky, and I've also got to be picky about people. And so we've got a lot of people asking to come on right now, which is a good challenge to have. I can't host everybody because I also don't have unlimited time. I've got my PhD that I'm working on. So like for me, I've got to study for comprehensive exams. I've got to do my research papers that I'm trying to put through this summer. And so it's really busy. So I can't make any promises. And even with the other mods, they're oftentimes really busy. They've got kids. So, I mean, they're extra busy. So it's a challenge. But it at least lets you know the starting points. Joe Valley, thanks for coming by. So James, when you're going to debate somebody, I have old debates on this channel if you want to check them out. One of them being like against August Berkshire. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. That's an old debate, but it was an in-person debate, and it was a fun one because I really do love August. He's a good friend. I appreciate him. And the other thing, is, let me see how much battery I've got left here. I'm running low. 21 minutes. Okay, I can work with that. The other thing is, I can't debate. I shouldn't debate anymore in the near future because maybe after I get tenure, and I'm not even a professor yet. So it might be a while. The reason is it just gives me a lot of protection where if I'm on the internet debating these ideas, and now that modern day debate is growing, it's like people may know about it, and it just might, in the academic world, it might be dangerous for me getting a job later. So might be a while. Being a moderator, one of the reasons I started modern day debate is being a moderator gives me some sort of immunity. So even though, no joke, one of the professors in my own department reported my channel to the chair. And that was before we even hosted controversial stuff. That was even before we started politics debates. But she reported it and tried to get me in trouble. And most of the people back then, it was just creation evolution. So they were kind of like, I don't really see this as a big deal. And so you could say that other professors defended me, which I was really thankful for. But the point is, now, especially with controversial debates on here, it's something that it's a little bit more risky, given that the channel is a little bit more of a black sheep of, according to some people, maybe. But let's see. Lewis Giles, thanks so much for your kind words. Says, I'm lucky. All I got to do is go to work. That's good, and I appreciate that. That is a good thing to have. And Carlos E. says, I really like the intro of Modern Day Debates show. Thanks, Carlos, and huge credit to Matterform, who's linked in the description and who made it. I love that intro. Seriously, doesn't it look epic? And Andrew Rouse, thanks so much for your super chat. Said, why do I keep missing these and coming at the end? Ugh. James, how far away are you from finishing your PhD? Can you style yourself PhD, ABD? I'm not ABD yet, so I've got a comprehensive exam, and then that's this. The plan is I planned it for November 19th, so that is this fall. Then I've got an e-comp that I'm supposed to be working, and it's an empirical comprehensive project. It's just basically another study, and once I finish those, I will be in the ABD category. So if I crush the e-comp really quickly, it means I could be ABD by the end of this year, so 6 months from now. But to be all but dissertation, frankly, is probably going to take me a little bit longer than that, because it's a very an empirically rigorous program, and I like that. Don't get me wrong. They put us through the ringer. We do have to work a lot, so that I do and I'm saying it's a good thing though. It's a quality program. It's a really respected program. So Floyd Visser says, you're not a pepper, so you don't have backup power. A backup only goes in reverse. I don't know what that means. Human Girl says, that's unfair. I agree. But to be fair, the chair and everybody else was actually kind of I don't see why it's a problem that James is a moderator. So I'm really glad that they are actually they didn't have a problem with it. So I'm glad it's only it's few and far between that are triggered by it. Now maybe a higher percentage would be triggered by it because we have debates on things like critical race theory. But I still think that so far I haven't had anybody bring it up again since then. And that was a year and a half ago. Could it have been longer? No, I think it was a year and a half ago. Yeah, it was. Oh man, that was stressful though. I remember it was I was on the trip. I was down in Texas on our Texas debate tour, recently after I found out this person reported the channel, and I was geez, I was pretty stressed about it. I was pretty bothered. But we're gonna make it, folks. Believe me. No matter what roadblocks are put in our way, we are going to crush them. We are going to keep going forward, folks. No matter how many roadblocks, we are absolutely determined to provide a neutral platform, to provide a level playing field for everybody to make their case to the world, no matter what walk of life they are from, folks. Gay, straight, black, white, Christian, atheist, Muslim, you name it. Republican, Democrat, we are glad you are here no matter who you are, and we want to give everybody their fair shot to make their case. And then Matterform says, glad you liked it. That would be an understatement. I'm telling you, that intro is seriously so cool. And seriously, Matterform, if we could talk about, we should talk more about, because I was oh, I love that intro. And I'm if we could do something like that, but we'll talk more. Let me make sure I don't forget. And then I won't forget, believe me. And then Hack says, the intro looks great. I completely agree. Oliver Catwell says, I guess it all depends on the idea and the child. The child? What do you mean? I don't... in Star Wars Mandalorian, the child? Or what do you mean? Christopher says, may the essence be with you. And then KKHKK123 says, what's ABD? It means all but dissertation. It means you've got everything done except the dissertation. And that's the last keystone project that you hammer out, if you can hammer it out. And then what is truth? Says, James, great work on the channel. Most definitely a lot of work. Thanks for your support, What is Truth. Seriously, that means more than you know. Gabriel Real says, how was the debate? It was phenomenal. Really deep, really fun. And so Brooke Chavez says, great job tonight. Thanks so much, Brooke. And thanks, moderators. You did a great job. Seriously. Appreciate it. I'm so glad that we've got Matt coming on again. I really do appreciate Matt. I think I told you I met Matt in person. You guys have seen the in-person debate, so you knew that. I really enjoyed spending time with Matt. Just a really pleasant fellow, and so we're glad to have Matt on, and Kenny as well. Don't get me wrong. Kenny as well. I was glad to have them both on. And so Church of Entropy says, thanks for your kind words. I appreciate that. And then Matterform says, yeah, we'll catch up. No doubt. Pancake Destiny you should invite your professors debate, deplatform or debate. Ha, that's funny. I'm sure that'll go over well. Andrew Rouse says, James is just the coolest. You don't have 100%. Thank you for your kind words. Seriously, I do appreciate that, Andrew. That means a lot. And then, thanks, Gabriel Real. That is like super encouraging. Said, James is a completely different level is at a completely different level with his neutrality. Congrats. Thanks, Gabriel Real. That is like super encouraging to hear. Seriously, you have no idea. It means so much. I'm super encouraged by that. And so for real, that is just, I'm like so happy to hear you say that, as that's what we're shooting for. And then Amanda says 28 likes until we're to 500 likes. Come on, let's do this. Let's do it, folks. We can totally get 500 likes. You guys, it'd be crazy not to. It's going to be epic. Hit that like button. You won't regret it. And then Human Girl says, break out the hand grenades. I couldn't agree more. And then Reservoir Gore says, I thought you already had ABD. At least that's what Usman said. That's funny. Usman, boy, oh boy. And then Lockbeard says, let's be real. All that college and you're going to make 10 times more money as a YouTube professional. LOL. That's funny. I don't know. You never know. I mean, I always tell myself I love modern day debate. And at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to tell. One is that, like, whether or not it keeps growing, whether or not the podcast keeps growing. Like, I would love to do this full time, to be honest, but it's not at a point where I could do that yet. So maybe someday. I mean, it would be epic. And then Floyd Visser. And then, but to be honest, though, the school isn't, I never really went to school, and same thing with modern day debate. Neither of them are things where I was like, oh yeah, like for the money. Both of them have always just been like the intrinsic joy because I actually really do enjoy school. Like I like the challenge. I like the rigor. It has put me through the mill. Like it's been rough sometimes, a lot of the time with a PhD, but it is definitely, it's helped me grow. It's been fun. I've met a lot of people, exposed to a lot of ideas. That's been awesome. And so I am thankful for that. And then let's see here. Catching up with the chat. EJ, thanks for coming by. Said, which school does the professor who reported you work for? That I cannot. I don't want to out them or dox them in anything. I know you're not asking me to dox them, but I don't want to even come close to doxing them because I just want to let it go into the past. But Andrew Rouse says, James, thanks for your kind words. And then Matterform, let's see. Human Girl says, I haven't seen it. EJ, we're glad you're here, though, for real. And Louis Preciado, we're glad you're here as well, who said, the intro is amazing. Whoa, baby, believe me. That's funny. That's good. That's a very good impression. And then Ferreron says, is James a high-powered mutant never once considered for mass production, fear and loathing in Las Vegas? That's funny. You're a funny guy. And then someday, like Lord willing, the plan is Dr. James. Who knows? But Reverend Arrow says, can't wait for another in-person debate at the ACA. I'm going to ask Matt if we can do it in August. That is the plan, for real. Because remember, we did a stretch goal back in January, and the stretch goal for that was we were trying to basically raise funds such that we wanted to make a trip down to Atheist Experience Studio and again, have it be live. And we do want to still have that happen. So it would not be a crowdfund event because we've already got those stretch fund goals, funds. And so that's something that any additional cost I'll fork out. And I really do want to make that happen. So I got to find out who Matt would be happy to debate. But that'd be cool. And then General Balzac, good to see you. Says, don't make a man blush. And then thanks for your kind words. Riley said, we all respect you and want to do right by you and your vision for UMD. That seriously means a lot. I do appreciate that, Riley. And so that's why we try. It seriously means a lot. I really do. And I hope everybody feels welcome. It's so important for me that everybody gets their fair shot. Like, I just don't want atheists or Christians or agnostics, whatever. I don't want anybody to be like, man, I always feel like the debater on that side gets kind of the short end of the stick. I want it such that people at so that people are kind of like out there and they're like, hey, I can trust modern day debate will give us a fair shake. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, I'm an atheist, whatever it is. I hope that they're like, hey, all right, yeah, like I'll go there. That's really important for me. And I will admit that like I have biases, and the trick to being able to try to fight against your biases is to first acknowledge you have them. So I have to say, it's like, I've got confirmation bias. I mean, everybody has confirmation bias. So I've got to be realistic about having that. And that's a form of bias. So it's like, I can't say that I'm like bias free. So the goal though is to fight against the bias enough such that everybody's like, hey, we get a fair shake there. And Reza Wadagor said, you could contact the guy who does Jim Cornette's artwork for his podcast clips. They really capture the essence of each topic. Would be cool for modern day debate too. It would be. We should actually, I should, no joke, ask if they would do one for me. And we'll see how many people at modern day debate recognize, like, hey, is that thumbnail, like, was that the same as from Jim Cornette's show? And then Christopher says, James, has Matt ever changed the way you think? If so, how? It's a great question. Let's see. Without like taking any like position or being biased, I've always enjoyed listening to Matt debate. You could say so, but I don't want to elaborate. I would say I'm like roughly the same. And I actually, a lot of you guys don't know that, or maybe you do know. I think I've mentioned it before. Well, anyway, long story short, I don't want to elaborate too much, but I've always been thankful to have Matt on. And then Farron Salas, let's see. Floyd Visser says, Rich Dad, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Be Educated. Interesting. Tell me more, Floyd Visser. I just started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I would say, oh, this is something I've always wanted to. Thanks for your super chat. Rich Coy says, great program and excellent moderating. Thank you for the great program. Seriously, that means a lot. Thank you, Rich. Seriously, I'm really encouraged by that. That means just more than you know. Seriously, I'm pumped. That puts an extra spring in my step. And Guy, CD1, thanks for coming by. We're glad you're here, as well as H. Jasper E. Thanks for dropping in. And then basically, yeah, I always want to give my opinion on education, because I think education, it's like one of those things I'm in the middle on. I really don't like, I have no idea what Rich Dad, Poor Dad says. But what I don't like is sometimes people are like, oh, education is like just dumb. It's just all useless to go to college. And I'm like, honestly, it's about what it sounds like for some people, what they say. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, it seems a little bit too far. Likewise, I don't actually like it when people are like, oh, everybody should go to college. I'm like, no, not necessarily. That's definitely, I think a lot of people like, nah, like they'd be happier and financially better off. And more importantly, just the quality of their life would be better. Because I think a lot of people think too much, like it's like all my students, when I teach general psych, all the students think that like going to college is about getting a good job after. And I'm like, not just that. I mean, I hope they do get a good job, and statistically it is correlated with that, though there's a lot of interesting debates in terms of whether or not it's the education. But nonetheless, for me, I'm like, it's a lot more than that. But anyway, Jimmy, thanks for coming by. Said AP returning. That right. I'm pumped. I'm stoked to have AP back. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then Human Girl said, I remember the boxing ring bell at the start of your old videos. Ding, ding, ding. That's right. I used to love that. I seriously love that. So that was really fun. And then Megan Satanis, thanks for your kind words, said, awesome debate tonight, James. It was totally worth the wait. I completely agree. I am really thrilled about it. And so we're getting close to 49,000 subs, which is exciting, folks. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, as I anticipate maybe by the end of the month. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe July 4th, maybe even July 10th. I think we're going to get pretty close. And so I'm pumped about it. I've already got one idea for something that we can announce during, I'm going to do like a 50,000 subscriber thank you stream. And that's the thing. For me, I'm like, if we're going to talk about numbers, like in terms of like modern day debate is at 50,000, I'm like, to me, that message by itself, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about the vision, but I want it to be about you. Like, I want it to be like a thank you stream. And so, as well as maybe some announcements about like cool things that we're trying to do to improve the channel and take it in new directions and try new things. But I am pumped about it. And so I'm thrilled to try to fulfill this vision that we have, folks. And it's something that we can be united in, no matter what walk of life we are from. Brenda, good to see you as well. And Wes Miles, glad you came by, as well as, is it Derag McKinney? Let me know if I pronounced it right. Thanks for coming by. And then chat's moving fast. Oliver Catwell says, sorry, earlier you asked if it was better to leave behind an idea or a child. Oh, you're right. Okay, I see what you're saying. Thank you, Oliver. I think you said a child is the answer. Now I get it. I was like, wait. I was like, why are you saying a child? I didn't know it was referring to that title. That's so funny. Thanks for letting me know about that, Oliver. I was like, wait, what is he like? I was so baffled. But Brooke Chavez says, so close to 500 likes. Folks, we are so close. We're at 489 likes by my count. I haven't refreshed the page yet, but folks, we're going to make it. We're going to get to 500. And so you guys might be good to see you. Woody says, love you, James. Love you too, Woody. Thanks for dropping in. And then let's see. Jimmy says, your bias is going to be tested with the Islam on trial debate with AP. I would guess it will be. It's going to be juicy. So you guys, I'm pumped about that. Brooke Chavez says, when will we have the one-on-one Zoom with you? Thanks for asking. I'm so sorry I'm slow about getting that organized and scheduled. And I promise I'll reach out ASAP. And by ASAP, I mean like I'd like to tomorrow, Monday at the latest. Okay. I'm so sorry that I think that I said as long as it's before June in the original Indiegogo like description, but I still wanted to have gotten the ball rolling on that earlier. And I think I told you I've been moving. So things have been like, that's definitely been taking a lot at time. So I'm behind, but thank you so much, Brooke, for your support. Seriously. And General Balzac says also awesome update to the intro outro. I agree. Isn't it epic looking? I'm so excited about that. And so Guy CD1 says, hey, I got called out. I usually listen on Spotify at work. That's funny. And I'm glad that, are you talking about Modern Day Debate on Spotify? Because I am so excited, you guys, that the podcast is being used by so many people. Folks, what is your favorite podcast app? Whatever it is, we're on there. And this debate with Matt and Dr. Rhodes will be on the podcast tomorrow. We are absolutely excited for that. And so it's going to be epic, you guys. Then, let's see. Church of Entropy talking smack in the old live chat. Good to see you. And then Andrew Kroll, good to see you, as well as Nathan. That's right. I got to say hi to you before. We're glad you're here, Nathan. And then Darag says it's Irish, pronounced Dara. Oh, Dara McKinney. Thank you for letting me know that, Dara. Seriously, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I like learning about that. Thomas MacArthur from Scotland says, hi, James, still on night shift from Scotland. We're so glad you made it, Thomas. You're a hard worker. You're staying up late doing those graveyard shifts. That's awesome. Good for you. And then Floyd Visser says Robert Kawasaki says to be an entrepreneur and not be educated, to be a good citizen, but control your own destiny and income, not be paid poorly by others. Says to be an entrepreneur and not be educated. That's interesting. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's a good way to go. But the thing is, it's like, at least in our current system, if you want to be a doctor, if your heart is set on being a pediatrician, you want to be a kid's doctor. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an engineer, like a chemical engineer, whatever it is that, turns your crank, man, you're going to have to, there's just no way around it, at least in the US. Maybe it's different somewhere else. And so now maybe you're like, I don't care if I'm those things. Well, then, that's certainly one less reason. But there are some ways in which I'd be like, it's just smart, like there are some people, it just has to be the case. You got me, you put a quarter in me. It just has to be the case that for some people, education is a great idea. I'll give you several examples. One, somebody has their heart set on being a pediatrician. They want to be a doctor for kids. They think it'd be super meaningful. And for some reason, it's like, for them, it's just by far the most meaningful thing. The other thing is, that's the thing is, it's like education is not just for the purpose of getting a job or making money. Not saying that that's what Kawasaki says, but I am saying that it's what a lot of people say, I think. And I would say the other thing is, I do think there's personal growth. Now, you could have personal growth, like pushing yourself to do that much intellectual work outside of school. Yeah, you definitely could. Like, there are people that are self-taught. That's a real thing. And I think there are people here at the channel even that sometimes you can see it's like that person has read a ton on their own. And the other thing is, 2 seconds, refreshing my brain. Oh, in a lot of cases, the finances, because some people are like, I'm not going to go to school and like rack up a gigantic amount of debt. And don't get me wrong, I would say there is such a thing as bad school debt, where I would say, yeah, it could be bad that you get that debt. So I agree with you, and I don't know if I'd have the same voice, but I would say like, yeah, I get where you're coming from. But at the same time, like there are some things where it's like, if you become a medical doctor, and if you're decent, even decent with money, not to mention good with it, you're going to pay that off really fast. And like, there are a lot of jobs in which a college education can be really useful. So, I mean, in other words, my answer is like, should you go to college? It depends. I don't know. Like, but I think certainly the answer is not, no, it's dumb, or yes, everyone should go. That's just like, nah, I don't go for that. That's something I'd be willing to have a debate on. That's something I think would be really fun. It's not controversial, so I think it could be fun, and not too risky. So and then I have like a middle ground position. I think it's like, yeah, anyway. Hannah Anderson says, I say we get to 50,000 by middle of July. Yeah, it has slowed down in the last few days. It could be middle of July. We were averaging like 100 a day, and we might jump back up to 100 a day for like maybe a week. But even then, 100 a day of new people would only get us to, for a week. Yeah. Still could easily be mid-July. So, but Guy CD1 says, yesterday I watched Modern Day Debate on Spotify. Oh, that's epic. Andrew Kroll says, 6 to go. Gurmania, it's 10:54 p.m. there. Wow. You guys are late night peeps. Andrew Kroll says, James, I'm a self-trained software and hardware engineer. That is epic. Hey, like I said, I think it's possible. I think there are a lot of jobs, though, just to be sure, like Andrew Kroll, would you concede that there are a lot of jobs that it's like if you don't get a college education, you just won't be able to do the job, like medical doctors, I'm pretty sure dentists, lawyers, a lot of the professional, you could say professional type jobs that especially require licensure. It's hard to see how you could go through and get those jobs without going through the educational process. But hey, good for you. I don't deny that there are some even types of engineering that people can do. And I have a buddy, for example, like learn code. And so I don't know what his exact title would be, but I would totally concede there are self-taught people or autodidacts. Like a boss said, sadly I have to go, but thanks, James, for another amazing debate. You're the GOAT of moderators. Thanks for your kind words. Seriously, that is super encouraging. Appreciate that. And then Sideshow Nav says, my oldest kid has an advanced degree and is happy. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear about that. And then Ross Thatcher said, how's the profits rolling in, guys? Let's see. But you spelled it profits as, I don't know if it was like meant to be a joke. You said you spelled it profits as in like a person who foresees the future. I don't know if it was on purpose. I think it was supposed to be a pun, but I can't tell. But Jeff Huff, thanks for coming by. I said, welp, seems like Matt. Let's see. I don't want to read anything that would be partisan. But Patrick McHenry, good to see you, as well as Christopher. And then I got to check out soon because my battery is low, folks. And soon the stream will. Actually, I found out that sometimes the computer that I stream on, if I don't have the power cord in for some reason, it's appeared to have sometimes just all of a sudden just shut off, and I don't know why. But Gurmania says, I missed this one, but I've rewinded it, and so I'm watching it now. Oh, good to know. Thanks for letting me know that, Gurmania. Thank you guys for all of your support. I love you guys, seriously. We're excited about the future. A lot of epic stuff coming up. And so keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Appreciate you. And we will see you next time, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to show you that epic intro again. Matterform, thank you very much. Oh, hold on 2 seconds. Oh, that's not it. Okay, that's embarrassing. Here we go.